Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto find Fox in Chunin exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by TRIGGER2332, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1, The Meeting. A 7-year-old boy ran down an alley, scared out of his wits. He kept running until he hit a dead end. He turned to run the other way but saw a shadow blocking the entrance. A dark chuckle seemed to echo down the alley, causing the boy to cower in fear. "That's right, demon scum, there is no escape," said the shadow as he stepped into the light, revealing a Konoha shinobi wearing a Chunin vest. "It's time you pay for all the pain you caused my family." A small boy yelped as he felt a kunai bury itself in his shoulder, pinning him to the wall behind him. He closed his eyes as more kunai impaled his joints. The Chunin started doing hand signs. Before ending on the snake seal. Oten. Pebble storm called the Chunin as dozens of small rocks shot forward in the child. One hit him in the side of the head, causing him to lose consciousness. He awoke in what appeared to be a sewer. "Great, they dumped me in a sewer," said the boy. "Hum to me," boy called, a deep but caring voice that seemed to come from all directions at once. He just followed the path until he came to a large room with giant golden bars and a small paper slip with the kanji for seal on it. Behind the bars were two glowing red eyes. "Welcome, Naruto Uzumaki. I was hoping I would get to meet my jailer soon." This shocked Naruto. "What do you mean by jailer?" asked Naruto. "It is quite simple, boy, I am sealed inside you." "Okay, then who are you?" When Naruto asked this, a set of fangs appeared, grinning like a madman. "I am a great demon lord, defeated by and sealed into you by your own father. I am the great Kyuubi no Kitsune," introduced the fox. The lights in the room seemed to come on at this point, revealing the great demon in all its glory. It even seemed to be striking a fierce pose. All of this went unnoticed by the young Jinchuriki as he was concentrating intently on something. This caused the giant fox to sweat drop, which is quite a comical sight. Naruto finally looked up before saying, "But weren't you killed by the Yondaime Hokage?" "I was defeated by him but not killed. Mortals cannot kill demons, no matter how powerful they are." It was when the fox said this Naruto realized what he had said earlier. "What did mean about my father being the one who beat you? I'm an orphan." Again stating the obvious, "Boy, your father was the greatest shinobi to come out of the Leaf Village since the Shodai Hokage, Konoha's Yellow Flash and Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze." This caused Naruto to sweat drop at the giant fox being a bit too overdramatic. It then clicked what the fox had said, "I'm the son of the Yondaime," screamed Naruto before the rest of the fox's message settled in. He then said in a quiet voice, "And he was the bastard that sealed you in me." Naruto didn't know if he should be happy that he knew who his father was or angry that he caused all the hatred he received from the village. "You shouldn't be angry, boy, your father did the only thing he could after I was released from your mother." "Wait, you were sealed in my mother?" "Yes, boy, her name was Kushina Uzumaki, you are a lot like her. She was a dear friend to me because she didn't treat me like a monster." "Then I will treat you good too," said Naruto with a huge smile on his face. Surprisingly, the fox smiled as well, which may have been a nice sentiment, but it scared the heck out of Naruto. "If we are going to work together, you will need to use my chakra to survive. If that is what it takes, I will use your chakra and become the strongest ninja of all time." "Believe it," yelled Naruto. "Then go and show this stupid ninja who's boss." And with that, Naruto was forced from his mindscape. Line break. Naruto awoke to find that almost no time had passed. The Chunin was only just starting to walk towards him with a kunai in hand. Then Naruto felt a pull in his gut as red chakra started to surround him. His eyes turned red with slits for pupils. His canines turned into full-blown fangs and his fingernails into claws. The kunai pinning him to the wall were pushed out of his body and the hole sealed over. Now that the physical changes were done, the red chakra started to cover Naruto's entire body, forming the rough shape of a fox with a single tail waving behind him. The Chunin was now getting scared. Fighting a small boy was one thing, but fighting a small boy fueled by demon chakra was another thing altogether. He turned to run but was shocked to find Naruto behind him now. "Where do you think you're going?" said the young Jinchuriki before smiling sadistically. Naruto proceeded to attack the Chunin. He started by whipping his tail forward and severing the man's right arm at the elbow, the demon chakra cauterizing the wound instantly. The man tried to scream but found no sound coming out of his mouth. He realized that the red chakra had entered his body through the wound and had started to shut down his internal organs, starting with his vocal cords. Naruto simply smirked. The fox hadn't just given him chakra, it had given him the knowledge to use it properly. He sat back and watched as the Chunin slowly collapsed due to his injuries. "Don't worry, it will be over soon," laughed Naruto. True to his word, the Chunin blacked out. Naruto then walked away as the unconscious Chunin writhed in agony. Line break. Naruto had dropped his chakra cloak when he left the alley. He didn't want anyone to realize he was using Kyuubi's chakra and start attacking him. He made his way to his lousy apartment and let himself in. He almost immediately dropped onto his bed and fell asleep. He was still tired after running away from the Chunin, and the adrenaline had run out from using the Kyuubi's chakra. When Naruto fell asleep he was pulled into his mindscape again. "What now, Kyuubi?" asked Naruto, a little annoyed that he wouldn't be getting any sleep. "Naruto, we are going to train, I don't want a weak vessel." "Okay then, what will we train in? Will you teach me cool jutsu or some awesome taijutsu katas?" "Neither, we will be learning stealth, you won't even need flashy jutsu if they can't find you in the first place." So that night Naruto learned several techniques to increase his stealth and overall hiding abilities. While he was training in the mindscape several changes occurred to his body, the first being that 9 of his blonde spikes grew longer and turned red, forming a crimson crown-like hairstyle. The second change was that a tattoo of a foxtail appeared on his right arm swirling around it. The third and final change was he grew until he was a little over the average height for a 7-year-old. His baby fat started to shrink and made him appear more lean and fit. He was now surprisingly ripped for a child. Line break. Hiruzen Sarutobi walked into the small apartment the next morning and found Naruto still asleep on the bed. He then noticed the changes and assumed the worst. He quickly pulled out a small pot of ink and a paintbrush and stated to draw an intricate seal on Naruto's forehead. Jiraiya had taught him this seal in case Naruto ever lost control. It suppressed all demonic chakra and influences from the demon, including recent memories. As the seal took effect, Naruto turned back to normal and started to stir from his slumber. "Morning, Jiji. Why are you in my apartment?" asked the slightly dazed Naruto. "I just came to remind you that today is your first day at the academy," said the Hokage, showing no hint that he was worried that the fox had been influencing the small boy. "Thanks, Jiji, I must have forgotten, I thought it was tomorrow," said the small boy. "Why would school start on Tuesday, Naruto-kun?" asked the Hokage, knowing full well that Naruto couldn't remember the day before, so he had thought it was Sunday. "That means I slept through Sunday," exclaimed Naruto in surprise. Chapter 2 Broken Seal. A Jounin, 3 genin and an old man were walking down a path. The Jounin was reading a small orange book, the old man was drinking sake, and the genin were all looking out attentively. As they passed by 2 puddles, not one of them reacted. Until 2 ninjas sprang out of the puddles and wrapped the Jounin up in a chain that was connected to both of their gauntlets. They pulled with all their might as the Jounin appeared to be shredded. "Kakashi-sensei!" screamed Sakura, one of the genin. She had bubblegum pink hair and the loudest banshee scream to ever be heard by mortal ears. The 2 enemy ninja looked to each other before nodding, one ran towards the genin and the other ran towards the old man. "Your death is upon you, bridge builder," the ninja heading towards Tazuna yelled. One of the genin sprang into action at this point, leaving his teammates behind. He ran at the ninja. "Pain!" Phoenix Flower Jutsu yelled out a certain duck-butt-haired genin. Sasuke charged forward and started launching small fireballs at the ninja. He dodged them all with considerable skill before charging at the genin and attempting to slash at him with his clawed gauntlet. Sasuke parried with a kunai before slashing at the man's exposed elbow, cutting deeply into the man's flesh. He screamed in pain and looked down as his arm dropped uselessly to his side. Meanwhile, Naruto was scared witless. The ninja was almost onto him, but he had to protect Sakura. He jumped in front of the enemy, knowing that he would be useless against him. He was just hoping that he would be able to stall the enemy long enough for Sakura to get away. "If only I knew more jutsu," thought Naruto as he felt helpless against this stranger. Terror was coursing through his veins. Then the man slashed at him, carving a large slash down his arm. He could feel some sort of poison oozing out of the claws and into his bloodstream. As he was blacking out, he saw Kakashi knock out both of the enemy ninja. Line break. Naruto woke up in a sewer. He thought it looked vaguely familiar, but couldn't remember where he had seen it before. He started to wander along the pipe until he reached a large room. Inside this room was a large cage held shut by a small paper slip with the kanji for seal written on it. Inside the cage was a giant fox. Naruto walked up to the cage, but when he got close a blue field pushed him back. When he reached for the field, his arm seemed to get more lean and muscular, but when he pulled it back it was normal again. "Good to see you again, Naruto," came the voice of the giant fox. This confused Naruto greatly as he was pretty sure he had never seen this fox before. Then he saw the 9 tails swinging behind it and realized that he was looking at the Kyuubi. This sudden realization had almost no effect on him, however, like he had already met him but had only forgotten. He reached forward again and the blue field reappeared but weaker. "Yes, weaken the secondary seal and then I can heal your wounds and remove the poison." As the fox was speaking, a crack appeared on the seal, allowing a small portion of red chakra to leak out, going straight into Naruto. "Now wake up, this damned seal is almost broken, then you will remember your true power." And with that Naruto woke up to see Kakashi talking to Sasuke and Sakura. He only heard a small portion of what he said, but it pissed him off. He heard, "Well done guys, it's good to see you two aren't completely hopeless." "Well, it's great to see the Kakashi care so much for me," said the Yokai-powered genin. The only person who heard him was Tazuna, and he was too scared from hearing the multi-layered voice to mention it to anyone else. The slashes on Naruto's arm healed up, leaving only a few drops of poison on his arm that had been pushed out by the yokai. By the time Kakashi and the other two had come over to check on Naruto, he was absolutely fine, the yokai now at a level where it would only be detectable by a very skilled sensor. Sasuke, seeing that Naruto had no wounds on him, assumed that he had merely fainted from fright. So dope, what's up with wimping out and fainting? You are undoubtedly the worst ninja ever. Naruto nearly lost it at this point, but decided that until he figured out what was going on in his head, he would try and remain calm. Wise decision, came the voice of the Kyuubi, albeit incredibly faint. Naruto didn't even notice the voice in his head. Kakashi, thinking that Naruto was about to start yelling at Sasuke, decided to divert their attention. So guys, should we continue this mission, as it has been bumped up to B rank, so we should return to the village, but I'll leave the decision to you three. Sasuke was the first to respond. We should continue, it's not like we'll find anyone stronger than me, an elite Uchiha. I agree with Sasuke-kun. Yelled Sakura while inner Sakura was shouting, Sasuke-kun is so heroic and brave and strong, he will make the perfect husband, and I will be his wife, cha. Whatever, as long as we train, I'm fine with continuing. Naruto sighed. And with that, Team 7 and Tazuna continued their journey to Wave Country. Line break. A dense mist covered the battleground. Kakashi was trapped in a bubble of water. Sakura was cowering on the floor. Sasuke was trying to think, but the amount of concentration was making him look constipated, and Naruto was simply channeling chakra. Until Shadow Clown Jutsu, cried Naruto, forming his new favorite hand seal. About 50 clones materialized and all charged towards Abusa, but before they even reached the shoreline, 5 water clones rose up and attacked the shadow clones. Once the small skirmish had finished, there wasn't any clones left on either side. Naruto then threw a folded demon wind shuriken to Sasuke, who spun when he caught it. Naruto was surprised that he had caught on to the plan so quick. When Sasuke threw the shurikens, Abusa simply swung his sword, knocking it aside. He noticed the second shuriken hidden in the shadow at the last second, allowing him to jump over it, still maintaining the water prison. That is until he felt something pierce his shoulder. He looked back to see two things, the first being a kunai buried deep into his shoulder, glowing with a faint purple chakra. The second thing was Naruto in the water. He realized that the second shuriken had in fact been the genin transformed. Zabuza was so focused on Naruto that he failed to realize that his water prison had dropped when the kunai had pierced his shoulder. It was only when he was hit with powerful kick to the ribs did he realize his mistake. He started forming hand seals, but found that his chakra wasn't responding, like the chakra points in his arm were clogged. He was partially correct, the small traces of yokai that were in Naruto's system from the healing had been pumped into the kunai and then into his chakra network, not enough to give him yokai poisoning, but enough to jam all his chakra points in his arm. Again, he failed to notice Kakashi until it was too late and he had been blown onto the opposite bank by an explosive tag. As Kakashi was walking over to finish the job, Zabuza was hit with several senbon to the neck, causing him to drop dead. At least that's what Kakashi thought when he checked for a pulse. Akiri Hunter Nin then dropped down from the trees and walked over to Zabuza's corpse. Thank you for the assistance, Konoha ninja. I have been tracking Zabuza for quite a while, looking for the best moment to strike. Goodbye. And with that, he grabbed the body of Zabuza and disappeared in a body flicker. Kakashi walked back over to the other side of the lake where Naruto was just climbing out. He walked over to the rest of his team before saying, "That was a great plan," which made Naruto beam with pride until he heard the end of the sentence. Sasuke said. Genin just smirked. He knew that the plan had been Naruto's, but he was in Uchiha, so he deserved the credit. It was at this point that Kakashi collapsed from minor chakra exhaustion, unable to move his body. Naruto was the one who was forced to carry the incapacitated Jounin to Tazuna's house. When they arrived at Tazuna's house, they were greeted by his daughter Tsunami. "Father, you're back. And these must be the ninja you hired." She had an intoxicating smile. It was enough to calm down the frustrated Naruto. They went inside and Tsunami showed them to the guest rooms and they basically collapsed wherever they could. The next morning, Kakashi was up and moving again. He was lucky if he had used just a little more chakra, he wouldn't have been better for a week. "Now this morning we will get some training down and decide who will be guarding Tazuna for the afternoon," said Kakashi to his team. They headed out into the woods until they came to a clearing. "Now today we will be learning how to climb trees." "But Kakashi-sensei, everybody can climb trees," came the know-it-all reply from Sakura. "Ah, but can everyone climb trees without their hands?" And with that, Kakashi channeled chakra to his feet and walked up the nearest tree, coming to rest on a branch about halfway up. He then threw 3 kunai down at their feet. "Mark your progress with the kunai and go." And with that, the genin started to attempt the exercise. Sakura got it first try, Sasuke got on his second. His first he broke the bark, but Naruto couldn't do it. Every time he would put too little chakra into it, causing him to slip off the tree. "Naruto put more chakra in," stated Kakashi like it was obvious. More chakra huh, well how about I give it my all, and with that Naruto channeled a large amount of chakra into his feet. As soon as his foot touched the bark, it discharged, blasting a foot-shaped hole in the tree and 3 trees behind it. Too much chakra, Naruto find the balance. Yelled Kakashi, like he was talking to a preschooler. After half an hour, Naruto could only get about 5 steps before he would fall again. Okay, that's enough tree walking for today, Naruto. Seeing how you didn't complete the task, you can guard Tazuna, your shadow clones will make it easier anyway. Sasuke, you come with me, we're going to do some different training, and Sakura stay here and keep doing the tree walking to increase your chakra capacity. Kakashi seemed almost thrilled that he wouldn't have to be around Naruto and Sakura anymore. Naruto went off to meet Tazuna at the bridge, while Kakashi took Sasuke off to a different clearing. Sakura looked around and saw that no one was there and decided that a little nap wouldn't hurt and promptly fell asleep against a tree. Naruto was waiting at the bridge, he got bored, so he sent a shadow clone to see what was taking Tazuna so long. He was shocked when the clone got dispelled by Tazuna smacking it over the head, but that wasn't what shocked him, it was the fact that he gained all the memories from the clone. So you figured out the secret to shadow clones, huh? Why not get some shadow clones to work on the tree walking? And you might as well send one to see what Kakashi and Sasuke are doing, it would surprise them if you knew the exercise already. Naruto was a little shocked that the Kyuubi was helping him, but decided that it was worth a try. He created 51 clones, most of them started attempting to climb up the steel girders of the bridge, while the last one left to see what Kakashi and Sasuke were doing. It didn't take long for Naruto to receive the memories from his clone, and what he learned pissed him off. Sasuke was learning advanced jutsu, and by the looks of things Kakashi had been teaching them to him for quite some time. It would also explain why Sasuke got the tree walking so quickly. Red chakra started to leak out of Naruto's navel. At first he was scared that the fox was trying to take over, until he realized that the red chakra was comforting him, like a friend giving him a hug, although that in itself was a new feeling. Naruto closed his eyes and when he opened them he was standing in front of the fox's cage. The first thing he noticed was that the blue field was covered in cracks. He walked up to the field and punched it, causing it to collapse. All of a sudden an influx of information forced its way into his head. The memory of meeting the fox, the lesson in stealth and the memory of who his parents were. I'm glad to see you remember now, kid. It would have been too troublesome to try and convince you that I meant you no harm again. Naruto smiled when he heard the fox's voice. Outside the seal, it had been a few hours since Naruto had gone into the seal. The Naruto clones were finishing up the exercise, they had almost completed it and when they dispelled, the original would be able to do it. Sasuke, Sakura and Kakashi were all heading toward the bridge, they were finished with their training for the day. The clones dispelled just before the other arrived. So all they saw was Naruto apparently asleep while Tazuna and his workers were packing up their gear. Naruto, why are you sleeping on the job? If Gato attacked you wouldn't have noticed. Scolded Kakashi. Yeah, Naruto, you baka. Yelled Sakura as she attempted to punch him in the head, but before she made contact Naruto disappeared. He reappeared behind them. I was not asleep, Kakashi-san, and you can talk, Sakura, you have been asleep since we split up. Said Naruto in a monotone voice. When they spun around they were shocked, Naruto was no longer the little runt they knew, he was now slightly taller, more muscled and lean, the baby fat on his face was no longer present, giving him a more angular face. His hair now had 9 red spikes ringing the outside of his head, forming a sort of crown, 2 of the spikes were longer than the rest drooping down to frame his face. He also had a tattoo of a foxtail on each arm. All in all he looked like a younger version of the Yondaime, the only differences being the red in his hair, his tattoos and whiskers. SS-sensei? Said the stunned Kakashi. Oh, so you didn't know, well that explains why you trained Sasuke more. Said Naruto, still in the monotone. We should head back to Tazuna's house, we wouldn't want to miss dinner. And with that he walked off, with Tazuna and a dumbstruck Team 7 following behind. When they arrived Tsunami was shocked to see Naruto, he was so different but also still very similar to before. But when she saw that his clothes were now several sizes too small, she decided that dinner would have to wait. I'm taking Naruto to see if we can find him some new clothes, you four set the table. And with that she dragged Naruto off towards town. Line break. When they returned from town, Team 7 were all sitting around waiting for dinner. Tsunami walked in first and went straight to the kitchen to finish up dinner. A minute later Naruto walked in, he was no longer wearing his trademark jumpsuit, he was now wearing a pair of black cargo pants with several large pockets and a burnt orange shirt under a midnight black cloak. Team 7 were shocked for the second time that day when they saw the drastic change between outfits. Naruto didn't even spare his team a second glance when he walked in, he simply went and sat down at the table to wait for dinner. A few minutes later Tsunami walked in with dinner. About halfway through the meal a small boy walked in and sat down with him. This is my grandson Inari, said Tazuna. Inari, these are the ninja I hired to help protect me and to help free Wave Country. Inari abruptly stood up. Why do you bother, you'll just die trying. None of you can stand up to Gato. Sit down boy, beating Gato will be no problem. Said Naruto, a bit of his old personality shining through. You don't know anything, you don't know what it's like to suffer, you were raised in a big village with people caring for you. You have never felt the pain that I've felt. Screamed Inari. Stop talking right now. You have never known true suffering. You weren't kicked out of an orphanage at the age of 3. You have never been beaten by almost every civilian and some of the ninja of a village. You have never had to dig through trash just to find some food to survive. You have a family, something I never had. Yelled Naruto, yakai leaking into his system. He got up and walked out the door. I'm going to go train Kakashi, don't wait up. At night many of the villagers woke up, feeling the earth shake. Chapter 3 Deal. A very feminine-looking boy was walking through the forest. In his hand was a basket, meant for herbs. He moved with a grace that only experienced ninja could pull off. Making no sound and leaving no trace. He stumbled upon a clearing to see a boy asleep in the middle of a crater. The air was thick with residual chakra. As he walked forward he saw the Konoha headband on the boy's forehead. He looked different, but this had to be the blonde one that had injured Zabuza. It would be easy to kill him now, thought the boy as he reached forward. At the last second he hesitated and instead shook the boy's shoulder, waking him up. You'll catch a cold if sleep outside, said Haku. Nah, I've never had a cold. Came Naruto's reply, and you can drop the act, I know you're the hunter nin. At this Haku tensed and reached for a hidden senbon. If you do that, Zabuza will never have the use of his arm again. Again Haku hesitated. I have a deal for you, Hunter-san. Haku seemed to be listening. If you and Zabuza promise to surrender instead of attacking, I will fix Zabuza's arm and pay you what Gato has promised you. Oh really, and how do you plan on doing that? Asked Haku. Oh, and call me Haku. Naruto smiled, seeing that Haku really didn't want to have to fight. They talked for many hours planning. Line break. Naruto walked into Tazuna's house to see his team all eating breakfast. When Kakashi spotted him he seemed to perk up. Ah Naruto, why don't you join us for breakfast? Called out Kakashi like they were all of a sudden close. No thanks Haddock. I already ate. Naruto replied calmly. You baka, you probably poisoned yourself, something that Sasuke-kun would never do. Yelled Sakura, switching from evil banshee to retarded fangirl in a microsecond. For your information, I caught a few fish before returning here. They were very nice. Said Naruto as he sat down in the living room with Tazuna, who was trying to drink a bottle of sake without his daughter seeing. When Team 7 was done eating, Kakashi told them to follow him out to the clearing they were in the day before. Naruto, let's see how high up the tree you can get. Kakashi said. Naruto just shrugged before walking all the way to the top without using a hand sign to channel his chakra. Kakashi was stunned, he hadn't expected Naruto to be able to do it so easily. Then again, now that he could see the resemblance between his sensei and Naruto, he had finally connected the dots and realized that Naruto was Minato's son. He also realized that it was probably too late to be a central part of his life. The best he could do was help him train. Today, Naruto, you can come with me, Sakura work on your chakra supply, and Sasuke guard Tazuna. Said the cycloptic Jounin. Before Sasuke or Sakura could complain, Naruto cut in. No thanks Haddock, I have some things I need to do. Alone. And with that he walked off, disappearing in swirl of leaves, causing all three of them to widen their eyes. Line break. Naruto was scouting out Gato's base. Haku had given him a basic layout of the mansion, but he trusted his own eyes more than someone else's opinion. From what he could see, there were several thugs patrolling the outer walls, as well as what looked to be some wearing samurai armor placed at key points around the compound. Naruto had his pranking genius mind on overdrive. Just instead of things like chalk erasers and water balloons, he was planning with kunai, shuriken, paper bombs and ninja wire. His lips were twitching, they were somewhere between concentration and a smirk. End of the week. Team 7 minus Naruto were walking to the bridge with Tazuna. They had left Naruto in bed when they had failed to wake him up. As they were walking, a dense mist rolled in, causing Kakashi to tense up. When they arrived at the bridge, the mist cleared a bit to show the workers all tied up but otherwise unharmed. Zabuza stepped out of the mist, Haku at his side. Kakashi was about to order Sasuke and Sakura to watch out, but Zabuza beat him to it. Don't worry Kakashi, we're not here to fight. Oh really, then why would you show up here? Replied Kakashi. Simply honoring my end of the deal. Stated Zabuza like it was simple. What deal? Said Kakashi as he narrowed his eye. Your other genin made me a deal I couldn't refuse, he's gonna pay me, then fix my arm, then I am getting out of this shithole. Continued Zabuza. Great, so the crippled demon doesn't want to fight and decides to betray me. Doesn't matter anyway. I was going to kill you when you were finished. Came the voice of Gato from the end of the bridge. When Zabuza heard this, he flared his chakra, causing the mist to clear completely. There was Gato standing behind about 50 thugs. It hurts that you think so little of me that you only brought 50 retards. Yelled out Zabuza. Most of men are preparing to crush this idiotic little town, in about 5 minutes my men will destroy everything here. Gato replied. Zabuza just smirked before charging forward, even with one arm he could still swing Kubikirabacho with little difficulty. Kakashi rushed to keep up, an unofficial competition starting between the two. For two A-rank ninja, 50 thugs was nothing but a warm-up. They were both even needing a tiebreaker. Gato proved to be the perfect target. As they reached Gato it appeared he had soiled himself. As the two raised their weapons, Zabuza had Kubikirabacho and Kakashi had a kunai. They were about to swing down, but a beam of black and red energy surged past them and hit Gato in the forehead, causing to explode in a rather disgusting mess. When the ninja on the bridge turned around they saw Naruto standing there with one hand outstretched, smoke in the air around his palm. Behind Naruto were all the civilians of the town, they were holding ropes, the ropes were tied to a large group of Gato's thugs. "What took you so long, Gaki? This arm is annoying," called out Zabuza, not even fazed about the mess that was once Gato. The same couldn't be said about Sasuke and Sakura though, both were puking over the side of the bridge. Naruto didn't bat an eyelash at any of his teammates, he just walked over to Zabuza and pulled a sealing scroll out of his cloak. "This should more than cover what Gato promised you. Now let me fix that arm," said Naruto. Before Kakashi could stop him he walked over to Zabuza and touched his shoulder before absorbing a red chakra. "That should do it, and as for what took me so long," Naruto continued. Flashback, Naruto waited for his team to leave before he jumped out of the bed and threw on his new gear. He was about to head out when he heard a scream from downstairs. "Tsunami," Naruto realized. He quickly ran down the stairs to see Tsunami being held by a samurai-looking thug and another one above Inari, with his sword raised about to slice Inari in half. As he swung his sword forward Naruto darted in front of him. The thug just smirked thinking he had killed him. He was shocked to see Naruto holding his hand out, his fingers ending in claws. The thug's sword suddenly fell apart, Naruto had slashed clean through the blade. His confidence faltered, if the boy could cut through his sword with ease, what could he do to flesh? He found out when Naruto's claws passed clean through his jugular. As he dropped to the ground, blood pouring out of his throat. In the blink of an eye he was across the room, he punched the other thug in the nose, knocking him out the door, leaving a trail of blood on the floor. "Shadow clone jutsu!" exclaimed Naruto, as a clone appeared. The clone stayed with Tsunami and Inari, while the original ran outside to finish the job. "Tsunami, Inari, we are going to go into town and round everyone up. Grab any weapons you can and we'll head out," said the clone. Outside with Naruto, Naruto was wiping the blood off his claws when he saw his clone taking Tsunami and Inari into town. He smirked before channeling Kyuubi's Yakai into his legs and speeding off to Gato's mansion. When he arrived he saw that less thugs were patrolling the fence, meaning the rest were in the central courtyard preparing for the attack. Naruto had infiltrated the mansion earlier in the week setting traps and looking over Gato's plans, so he knew what the thugs were doing at the moment. He smirked before forming the ram sign and triggered the trap set at key locations around the compound, trapping the thugs patrolling the fence. "Hey Kyuubi, can you tell me if there are any chakra signatures anywhere other than the courtyard?" thought Naruto. "There are about 3 weak signatures in Gato's office. Other than that they are all in the courtyard," replied Kyuubi. "Thanks," and with that Naruto sped off and jumped onto the mansion's roof. He looked down at the gathered thugs before smirking. Jinchuriki art. Biju barrier. As the tattoo on his left arm faded out, a red barrier surrounded the thugs in the courtyard. At first they were shocked before regaining their courage. About half of the 150 assembled thugs rushed the barrier, thinking they could break it. They were shocked when they passed right through like it wasn't there. They simply smirked before their smirks changed into looks of horror as their skin started to burn and peel off. Smoke and screams filled the air. They continued to burn even when the skin was all gone, leaving nothing behind except sickening puddles of goo. The remaining thugs were wise enough to surrender. Naruto just made enough shadow clones to outnumber them 3-1. The clones proceeded to walk through the barrier with no adverse effects, in fact they seemed to get a power boost from the Yakai. They walked forward and started to tie up the thugs. When the last one was tied up the barrier dropped. Naruto walked into the mansion, leaving his clones to guard the thugs until the villagers arrived. As soon as he entered the building he raced towards Gato's office. Inside he found the 3 people that Kyuubi had mentioned. They were all wearing matching outfits. Gray camouflage pants and dark blue shirts with mesh underneath. They were so similar that they could have been triplets, all about 6 in height with brown eyes and messy black hair. They also had slashed out headbands indicating they were ones from Tokigakure. Without revealing his presence he started to psyche them out. "Judging by your chakra signatures you couldn't have been anything higher than Genin when you left your village. What didn't like your sensei? You should have stayed in your village, now I will kill you all without breaking a sweat." Each of them had a different reaction, one looked like he would soil himself, one was slightly worried, and the last was just cocky. "Do you think you can intimidate us? We are the famous Tripwire Triplets, renowned in Taki as the best trapping genin team the village has ever seen," the last one pronounced cockily. This just confused Naruto as they obviously hadn't placed any traps or even tried to. Apparently, they didn't even have any weapons with them. Naruto decided to put the coward out of his misery first, quickly darting into the room and snapping his neck before taking a step back. The other two hadn't even seen him enter the room, they had only heard a crack and looked over to see their brother drop down dead. The one who had been worried was now shaking like a leaf. But the cocky one was now shaking with rage. They both spun to see Naruto simply checking his nails, which were slowly getting longer and sharper. The scared one suddenly straightened up like he wasn't in control anymore. Thin wires were connected to him, controlling his movements like a puppet. "Brother, what are you doing?" cried the poor man. "Don't worry, I'm a very good puppeteer," said the cocky one in a rage-filled voice. Naruto looked on in disgust, using his own brother as a weapon. He decided that maybe he deserved a bit of mercy, and by mercy he meant a quick death. Naruto shot forward and in one sweep of his claws, killed the man and severed the wires. "There is one thing my sensei actually taught me, do you know what that was? Teamwork. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum," said Naruto before he continued, "That makes you even worse, using your own brother as a weapon." Naruto then charged forward, placing a Yakai-powered punch to the man's throat. Yakai leaking into the man's chakra network, slowly burning him from the inside out. Naruto was angry, wait scrap that he was furious. He had never had a family, but if he had he wouldn't use them as a weapon. As these thoughts were going through his head, a third tattoo appeared on his right arm. The same foxtail as the other two but directly opposite on his arm, spiraling around. "Good work, Kit, you gained control of the third tail, but you should probably calm down before you lose control," called the Kyuubi. Naruto calmed, causing his tattoos to return to full color. Seeing the third tattoo on his arm, he smirked. He walked over to the wall of the office and grabbed a small hidden handle and tugged, making the entire wall swing out, revealing a large safe door. "Chakra proof, like the Hokage vault." "Shame, chakra proof doesn't mean Yakai proof. Let's see if I mastered this jutsu," said Naruto. He held out one of his hands, palm up. Little black and white balls of energy started being sucked into a ball above his palm. They continued to form the ball until it was about the size of a bowling ball. When it was done, he placed his other hand over the top and pressed down, causing the ball to compress down to the size of a golf ball. When it was small enough, he clapped his hands together, causing the ball to disappear. He pointed his palms towards the vault door before calling out, "Jinchuriki Art. Bijuu Blast." And with that, black and red energy shot out of his palms, causing the door to heat up and melt. After a few seconds, the door was nothing but a puddle. The right hand discharged faster than the left. "I should get rid of the rest of the Yakai soon before it blows my arm off," said Naruto. "What the hell are you?" cried the last triplet as his life was slipping away because of the Yakai burning away his chakra coils. "Huh, oh, you're talking to me. I'm your worst nightmare, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune," said Naruto with barely repressed bloodlust in his voice. The last thing the missing nin saw was Naruto grinning with his fang-like canines poking out. Once the man was dead, Naruto walked into the vault and started sealing things into scrolls. Haku and Zabuza had supplied him with the scrolls. Once everything was sealed up, he split the scroll into categories, one pile for the villagers, a smaller pile for Zabuza and Haku, and the rest for Team 7 and Konoha, as extra payment for the mission, seeing as it would be bumped up to at least A. Naruto then distributed the scrolls for the village to the villagers and put Zabuza's scrolls into a slightly larger scroll before placing it in a pocket in his coat. The ones for Team 7 and the Hokage he placed into the various pockets on his pants. Once this was done, Naruto and the villagers marched Gato's thugs to the bridge. Flashback end. "And that pretty much sums it up," finished Naruto. "Well, Gaki, with this much money we can return to Kiri and help out the rebellion. If you ever need help from us, don't hesitate to call," said Zabuza as he shook Naruto's hand before he and Haku raced off to collect their belongings and leave Nami. Naruto looked down to see a scroll in his pocket. He pulled it out and gave it a quick once-over before smirking and thanking Zabuza in his head. He placed the scroll in his pocket before his team could see it before walking over to them. By this point, Sakura and Sasuke had stopped puking over the side, but they were both a little green. "Haddock, you should probably take those two back to Tazuna's house while I clean up here," said Naruto in a voice that showed his disgust for his teammates. Kakashi just nodded before grabbing them both and walking off. That afternoon, Naruto and a legion of clones helped Tazuna clean the blood and other such fluids off the bridge. 1 week later, Team 7 were walking across the completed bridge, the cheers of the villagers could still be heard. Naruto, using the Kyuubi's chakra, had heard them dub the bridge as the Great Naruto Bridge, causing him to smirk the whole trip back. Chapter 4 Reactions. Naruto laughed as he jumped back, landing on his bed. "Did you see his face, Kyuubi-sensei? It was hilarious," Naruto called out in his mind. All he heard was a dark chuckle in response. Flashback. Team 7 walked towards the great gates of Konoha. Sakura was staying as far away from Naruto as possible. Sasuke was trying to get Naruto give him the strange power he could wield. Kakashi was watching Naruto like a hawk with a look of sorrow showing in his one visible eye. Naruto himself hadn't talked to any of the others since they left Wave, not even acknowledging they were there. When they reached the gates they were waved right through, being told by Kotetsu and Izumo that the Hokage wanted to talk to them. They didn't pay attention to the genin until they had passed, and they were amazed to see the sudden change in Naruto. When Naruto was a child and Prank King, he had often hidden in the guard booth with them. They thought it was funny watching Jonin and Anbu running around and never finding him. They simply shrugged, trying to figure Naruto out was effectively wishing for a migraine. Kakashi led his team to the Hokage tower, people openly glaring at Naruto or stopping to stare in shock. When they reached the tower Naruto disappeared, no puff of smoke, no swirl of leaves, just disappeared, like he was never even there. Kakashi shrugged and continued on to the Hokage's office. It took them about 10 minutes to make their way there. When they arrived Naruto appeared again, like he was never gone. The Hokage hadn't looked up from his paperwork yet. "So Kakashi, how was your mission?" questioned the Hokage. "Well, it was successful, Hokage-sama, but there were a few complications," stated Kakashi. It was at this point that Hiruzen looked up from his never-ending paperwork. Aosuu, when the Hokage saw Naruto, he launched out of his chair and grabbing a calligraphy brush and ink. Anbu appeared from various places around the room, grabbing Naruto, while the Sandaime tried to draw the demon suppression seal. Tried being the key word. When his brush hit Naruto, he disappeared in a puff of smoke, revealing it to be a shadow clone. Flashback end. After that Naruto had explained to the Hokage that the Kyuubi meant no harm, obviously he had waited for Sakura and Sasuke to be escorted out of the room. That in itself was almost as funny as the Hokage's various faces during the explanation. The Sandaime was wary at first until Naruto had sighed in annoyance and tapped the Hokage's hand. The Anbu didn't notice anything strange until the Hokage's eyes widened. He had had a very strange heart-to-heart with the Kyuubi. The Anbu were about to pounce, but the Hokage raised a hand, stopping them in their tracks. When they were done with the explanations Naruto had something else to ask, so when Kakashi had left he spoke up. "I want to be transferred to a different team," he had asked. Hiruzen was confused at first until Naruto had explained Kakashi's blatant favoritism toward Sasuke and now trying to ignore Sakura and Sasuke to teach him. Hiruzen had agreed to the transfer if he didn't make Chunin in the next Chunin exam. Naruto had been confused at first until the Kyuubi filled him in mentally. Naruto had agreed to this, meaning if Kakashi didn't nominate them, Naruto would be transferred, and if he did nominate them and Naruto wasn't promoted, he would be transferred as well. Meaning Kakashi's only hope to keep the son of his sensei, then he would have to nominate them for the Chunin exams and then help them during the month break. Not just Naruto, he had to show at least some help to the other members in the team. Naruto had no plans of being trained by Kakashi, he already had a private tutor in the form of the Kyuubi. So in other words Kakashi had to train Sakura or Naruto would hightail it out of there. Naruto smiled as he stared at his roof, still going through all the different reactions he had seen today. Konohamaru had thought it was badass, and Tucci from Ichiraku Ramen had thought it was an improvement to the orange jumpsuit, and most importantly the villagers didn't recognize him. Even though the changes were small they were enough for him to buy enough supplies to last him for a month, as well as a large amount of kunai, shuriken and various other ninja tools. Now that he had all he needed for the next few weeks of training and then the Chunin exams he could rest. Although rest probably wasn't the best word for it, as soon as his eyes closed he found himself being drawn into the seal. Mindscape. "So what do you want, Kyuubi-sensei?" called out Naruto as he walked down a hallway in his mind. It was no longer a filthy sewer, it was slowly changing. Right now it was halfway between a cave and an open meadow. The meadow was slowly taking over, but still these small cave areas existed linked together by walkways. As Naruto walked into the large meadow he saw his sensei. The Kyuubi, but not as most people would picture him. Instead of a giant fox made of chakra, it was instead a man. He was about 6 tall with blood-red hair slicked back down to his shoulders. He was wearing black samurai-style armor. Blood-red sandals matching his hair adorned his feet. This is where the human resemblance ends, however. Poking out of his hair were 2 red fox ears, his eyes were red with slit pupils, and fangs jut out of his lips. 9 flowing red fox tails swung around behind him, each moving independently. "Now kid, we have a long night ahead of us, but first I wish to tell you something that I never told your predecessors. My name," started Kyuubi before Naruto interrupted. "Wait, I thought your name was Kyuubi." Kyuubi snarled and smacked Naruto in the back of the head. "Ubaka, Kyuubi is my title, not my name. My name is Kurama, leader of the Kitsune clan." Kurama took a deep breath before continuing, "Now that we have done that we are going to continue your training and using Yakai." Naruto's body may have slept that night, but his mind didn't. While he slept for a few hours in his bed his mind trained for days, trying to control as much Yakai before he would lose control. He would always lose control when entering the four-tailed state. This frustrated him to no end, but he knew that he wouldn't accomplish much inside his mind. One good thing about spending so much time on one thing is it left Kurama time to transfer the information about demonic jutsu directly into Naruto's mind. For the next few weeks Naruto's nights were like this, well during the day he would go to his team's training sessions, mainly to make sure Kakashi wasn't exclusively training Sasuke. Kakashi was trying to train all of them, he didn't want to lose his sensei's son. Naruto rarely paid attention to Kakashi's pleas of forgiveness or his offers of training. He merely observed the training taking place, or at least that's what they thought. In reality he sent a reinforced clone to training, while he himself walked around Konoha invisible to the naked eye. Kurama's training and stealth had all come back to him, allowing him to blend into almost any landscape. He had been watching the arriving genin for the Chunin exams and been evaluating who he thought would make it. So far no one had caught his eye skill-wise, but that didn't mean he was right. Finally a team with promise. Thought Naruto seeing a team of Suna genin, one obviously a Jinchuriki. He watched them until the Jinchuriki split off with their sensei, while the other two started walking around the village. At first he wasn't sure who to follow, but he could sense the Jinchuriki's yakai, so finding him wouldn't be hard. He followed them for about 10 minutes before Konohamaru ran straight into the one with a bandaged object. Not 5 seconds later did his clone and Sakura come around the corner, Sakura immediately apologizing for Konohamaru, saying it was her fault. I don't care whose fault it was, this little gaki ran into me, so I'm going to teach him a lesson. The ninja said with an almost sadistic grin. This was when the clone came to the rescue. I suggest putting him down before I have to damage you. Said the clone with a large sadistic grin plastered over his face. Kankuro listened to the hunk, you don't want to start an international incident. Came the voice of the blonde girl behind him. Oh come on Tamari, it's just one kid, how much of an incident could that be? Complained Kankuro. Suddenly an ear-splitting crack was heard. For a second no one could find the source of the crack until looking to Kankuro who was holding the arm that was previously holding Konohamaru. I said to put down the Hokage's grandson and you didn't listen, this was my way of protecting my leader's legacy. Said the Naruto clone, oh and don't worry nothing broke yet. A faint cry of boss is so awesome was heard in the background as Konohamaru ran away. That's it. Yelled Kankuro, reaching for the bundle on his back. But before he could a rock hit him in the injured arm, causing him to grit his teeth in pain. Looking up into a tree, funnily enough the same tree that the real Naruto was hiding in, revealed Sasuke. Erg they keep crawling out of the woodwork, exclaimed Kankuro. Kankuro you are a disgrace to our village called out a monotone voice from the tree that was apparently the preferred hiding place in the village. Sorry Gaara came the reply from both Tamari and Kankuro. With a sand body flicker Gaara moved from the tree too with his siblings. With a flick of his finger sand shot out and dispelled the Naruto clone, forcing Naruto to reveal himself. Sasuke and Sakura were shocked, Sasuke had been using his Sharingan the whole time, meaning Naruto hadn't substituted with a clone, also meaning Naruto had been skipping training and D-rank missions. Who are you? Questioned Gaara in his monotone. I'm Sasuke Uchiha. Replied Sasuke with an air of confidence that can only come with being told they are good without any actual effort being put in. Not you, I was talking to the one who holds great power. Stated Gaara looking straight at Naruto, causing Sasuke to look pissed and slightly constipated. Who me? Questioned Naruto, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, little one. Gaara seemed to swallow in fear. Don't anger him, do not try for his blood, whatever you do, he will kill you before you can try. Came the desperate voice from within Gaara's mind. Sorry, sir. Said Gaara, stuttering in fear. Tamari and Kankuro were shocked beyond belief, nothing scared Gaara. Before they could think more on it, Gaara looked at them with a hard look in his eye, so instead of commenting on anything they followed him. I wonder why Gaara's scared by the blonde hunk, he's good looking, but that doesn't mean he's strong. Thought Tamari. Once the Sand siblings had left Naruto looked at his teammates, scoffing he disappeared before their eyes. Shocking Sasuke who didn't see anything even though he had had his Sharingan active the whole time. The next day found Naruto waiting outside the academy grounds, being the first of his team to show. He waited for half an hour before his team arrived. Took you long enough he said. HN, let's just get this done with. Guess who said that? If you guess the resident emo brooder who goes by the name of Sasuke, then you get bonus points. The three walked into the academy and up one set of stairs before seeing a crowd of Chunin hopefuls crowding around a door. A green-clad genin seemed to be getting beaten to a pulp by two genin in front of the door who looked suspiciously like Kitetsu and Izumo. Let's just continue on, don't alert them to the Jinjutsu. Naruto whispered to his teammates. They nodded and continued on. Sadly they didn't make a few steps out the door when the green-clad genin from before was standing in front of them with his teammates coming through the door. All of the boy's injuries were gone. Are you Sakura? The boy questioned, simply waiting for her to nod before continuing, I am Rock Lee, and will you go out with me? If you do I will protect you until the day I die. He yelled out, displaying his youthfulness for all to see. And that made me feel dirty writing that. Sorry, but I have my eyes in someone else," she said while looking at Sasuke. Lee took this as a challenge. "Then I shall fight you, Sasuke Uchiha. You are considered a genius and hold Sakura-chan's heart, so I must fight you," called Lee. "Lee, we don't have time," called his female teammate. "Do not worry, Tenten and Neji, my youthfulness shall shine through and make this quick," he called. "Fine, Lee, but we aren't waiting for you," said the other teammate, presumably Neji. They walked off, Naruto with them. "Make this quick, Sasuke, I don't want to fail because you end up a bloody mess before we reach any fighting stages," called Naruto as he walked out. It wasn't 2 minutes later that Sasuke, Sakura and Lee came up to the 3rd floor. Team Guy moved on ahead while Sasuke caught his breath. After he was alright, they went to the room and found Kakashi leaning against the door reading his smut book. "Ah, good, you all showed up, so good luck, don't fail too early on," said Kakashi before disappearing in a body flicker. "Well, this should prove interesting," said Naruto, a sadistic smile present on his face. Chapter 5 Exams can be brutal. As Team 7 entered room 301, they were bombarded with killing intent. Sasuke and Sakura flinched, but Naruto just bared his fangs before releasing Kurama's killing intent. Several genin got up and left the room, some with suspicious wet patches in their shorts. Gaara visibly flinched while his teammates shivered in fear. How can this guy emit so much power? It's like Gaara but more powerful and more controlled, thought Temari. As soon as Naruto saw that the weakest of the enemies had left, he released the killing intent. The room collectively sighed in relief. Shortly after Naruto led up the KI teams 8 and 10 walked in. Ino tackled Sasuke and started arguing with Sakura. Kiba, Choji and Shikamaru leant against the wall. Naruto joined them. At first they were stunned with the changes, but they shrugged it off. Naruto was known as the most surprising ninja in Konoha. As Sakura and Ino reached their loudest point, a tall boy with silver hair and a Konoha hit I-8 walked over. "Hey, you might wanna keep quiet, this room is filled with the best of the best, and you guys being rookies is just painting targets on your back, and being loud isn't helping your chances for remaining unnoticed," explained the newcomer. "Who are you? I haven't seen you around before," questioned Sakura. "Oh, I'm Kabuto Yakushi. If you want to know anything about these exams, just ask," stated Kabuto. "Is this your second time, Kabuto-san?" asked Ino. "Haha, no, this is my 7th try," said Kabuto sheepishly. "Wow, you must suck," yelled Kiba. The other guys just chuckled. "Well, I might, but with all my failures I've collected information on the exams and individuals in the exams," explained Kabuto. "Tell me about Gaara from Suna, Rock Lee from Konoha and Naruto Uzumaki from Konoha," commanded Sasuke. "Oh, you know their names, too easy," said Kabuto as he pulled out 3 cards. First up, Gaara of the Desert. He's the son of the current Kazekage, his teammates are his siblings. He has been on 50 C rank missions, 20 B ranks and 2 A ranks. I don't know about his abilities because he's from another nation, but it's rumored he returned from each mission without a scratch. The rookies, except Naruto, were shocked beyond belief. They had been on 1 mission above D rank each, and even their weak missions had resulted in injuries. Next up, Rock Lee of Konoha. His teammates are Neji Hyuga, the prodigy of the Hyuga clan, and Tenten, an orphan. Their sensei is Might Guy, the green beast of Konoha. Lee has been on 200 D rank missions, 20 C ranks and 1 B rank. Ability-wise he isn't that impressive. He was the dead last of his class, he can't use nin or genjutsu, but his taijutsu is rivaled by none of the other genin of Konoha. Sasuke clenched his fist in anger. He hadn't just been beaten by a freak with giant eyebrows, he had been beaten by a dead last freak with giant eyebrows. And finally, Naruto Uzumaki. His teammates are Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno. Their sensei is Kakashi Haddock. His team has been on 30 D rank missions and 1 A rank. Ability-wise he is worse than Lee. He has very little ninjutsu, using only the shadow clone technique. His genjutsu is non-existent and his taijutsu is only effective if he has a large amount of clones. The most impressive thing about him is that he has chakra that can rival the average Kage. Finished Kabuto. "I hate to break it to you, Kabuto, but your information is outdated," said Naruto. "I doubt it," chuckled Kabuto. Before Kabuto could continue, a cloud of smoke appeared at the front of the room. "Alright maggots, I hope you're ready for the first exam," called out a bear of a man. "I'm Ibiki, the first proctor. You have 30 seconds to get a number and sit in your seat for this written portion." The room turned into a blur of motion as each genin raced to be seated. Naruto found himself sitting next to Hinata. "Could be worse, although if I was next to Sakura I could have cheated off of her test," thought Naruto. And just a little joke that you'd get if you read Konoha's Red Flash. Ibiki went on to explain the rules of the test and the elimination system. "Hang on, only 2 points off for cheating. This is meant to for information gathering. Hey, Kurama, send some yakai to my eyes so I can see through any genjutsu," thought Naruto. "You got it, kid," said Kurama as he sent enough yakai to turn Naruto's pupils into slits. Immediately Naruto spotted 3 Chunin disguised as a team. "Good work, kid," praised Kurama. Now then, how to cheat? I could just get up and scare the crap out of someone and take their paper. That would only count as cheating once, wouldn't it? But that isn't information gathering, it's more like intimidation, which I will admit is funny. Thought Naruto, maybe I should have a look around to see what everyone else is doing, might give me an idea. Naruto looked around at the other genin. Kiba and Shino had similar tactics of using their respective animals. The Hyugas and Sasuke were using their Dojutsu. Sakura and Shikamaru were writing the answers. Choji was moving at the exact same time and exact same movements as Shikamaru. Gaara was using sand to temporarily blind people and then using an eye of sand to get the answers. I got it. Thought Naruto triumphantly, this is going to take a lot of control. Naruto concentrated before discreetly forming the hand seals for the standard academy clone, using a bit of yokai to make the illusion almost impossible to recognize. Because the clone was intangible, he sat inside it and used his stealth training from Kurama. He disappeared and walked around the room until he reached Sakura. He memorized all her answers before walking back to his seat and dispelling the clone before writing the answers down. He leaned back and put his arms behind his head and waited for the test to end. Well done, kid. That was done almost perfectly, but I think the Hyuga next to you may have noticed a slight blur of chakra left in your wake, said Kurama. Well, let's hope she doesn't call me out, replied Naruto. 50 minutes into the exam, Ibiki started talking again. Alright, time for the final question. It was at this point that Kankuro walked back in from his toilet trip. I hope you found playing with your dolls enlightening, said Ibiki. Crap, he knew. Thought Kankuro. Now, as I was saying, it's time for the final question. You can choose not to take it and fail right now, continued Ibiki. Why the hell would we do that? Yelled out Kiba. Because if you take the question and get it wrong, then you'll be kicked out of the Chunin exams and will be prohibited from entering the exams again, replied Ibiki. What, there are people who have failed before here? Yelled out Kiba again. Yeah, but I wasn't their proctor. Grinned Ibiki evilly. Now, is there anyone who wants to quit? At first no one moved until the disguised Chunin raised their hands and left. This opened the floodgates as team after team left, almost trampling each other to get out of the room. Naruto looked behind him to see Sakura about to raise her hand. Channeling a bit of yokai, Naruto growled, the sound reverberating around the room. You don't have the authority to prevent anyone from never becoming Chunin. There are 3 children of a cage here. I don't think it would help a village's image if the family of the cage couldn't be promoted. So that's soon out from agreeing to something like that, and without permission from each participating country you wouldn't be able to do it. And another thing, who cares if you do have the authority to prevent us from getting promoted? That could be helpful to us. A rank doesn't guarantee strength, so you making us stay genin would cause others to underestimate us, resulting in their downfall, said Naruto. His speech, whilst strange, had given the remaining genin the courage to stay. Ibiki looked around the room and saw the determination of the faces of every single genin in the room. Well, if no one is going to leave, then you all pass, exclaimed Ibiki. What? What about the 10th question? Yelled out Ino. There was no 10th question, or rather the choice to stay or go was the question, explained Ibiki. And what about the first 9, what were the point in doing those? Asked Tamari. Ibiki went on to explain the need for information gathering and the need for correct information. He then took off his bandana to show everyone the scars that covered his skull. Naruto wasn't paying much attention, this stuff had already been explained by Kurama during his stealth training. His attention was caught when a ball crashed through the window and kunai shot out, revealing a banner which read Anko Midarashi, sexy, single proctor of the 2nd exam. Shortly after the banner had unraveled, a woman jumped through the broken window. Naruto didn't listen to the banter between the proctors, it was something about going soft. Now then, follow me to training ground 44, better known as the Forest of Death. If you aren't there in 5 minutes, then you will be disqualified, said Anko before jumping out the window. For a second no one moved before all making a mad dash for the window. Naruto shook his head. Why do they always do that? They get told they need to be somewhere and they all hesitate before sprinting like lunatics, thought Naruto before channeling yokai to his legs and darted out the window, overtaking all but the proctor on his way to the training ground. Once 5 minutes were up, Anko looked at the assembled genin. They had all kept up fairly well. Now then, Gakus, this is a survival exam. You will each be given either a heaven or earth scroll. You must obtain the both before making it to the tower in the center of the forest. You have 5 days to complete this exam, explained Anko. 5 days? What will we do for food? Called out Choji. There are plenty of plants and animals in there, although you'll have to eat them before they eat you, said Anko. This will be easy, commented Naruto dryly. Anko smirked before launching a kunai at Naruto, grazing his cheek. She appeared behind him and was going to lick the blood off of his cheek. I wouldn't do that, stated Naruto as he wiped the blood off and flicked it onto the ground. The blood turned black and sizzled into smoke. Naruto's finger then glowed red. Everyone watched in stunned silence as he ran the finger over the cut, causing it to heal rapidly. Anko got off of his back and turned and picked up her kunai to find that the edge that had cut Naruto was now rusted beyond repair. She sighed before walking back to the front of the group. Now you all need to sign one of these waivers. I don't want to get in trouble if you die. Once your whole team has signed their waivers, then you can exchange them for a scroll and a gate number. Oh, and don't open the scrolls, if you do you won't like what happens," explained Anko. Team 7 got their scroll and Sasuke demanded that he carry it. Naruto didn't care, he would probably collect a few extras during the exam. They were escorted to a gate by a Chunin and told to wait until Anko called the start. As they waited, all 3 members remained silent. They knew that they could die in this part of the exam and were all serious. Suddenly a voice boomed over the loudspeaker set up along the fence. "Now let the second stage of the Chunin selection exams begin." Chapter 6: A Snake in the Grass. Team 7 darted into the forest, while Sakura, Sasuke and the shadow clone dashed into the forest. Naruto shook his head before darting off along the fence. When he reached the next gate, he channeled yokai to his senses. He took in a deep breath and smelt something very out of place in the land of fire. It smelt like it had rained recently. "Aim," Naruto whispered under his breath before following the scent trail. He quickly found 2 genin wearing strange yellow jumpsuits, apparently waiting for their third teammate. What struck Naruto as odd was that one had one eye covered and the other had both eyes covered. Naruto just shrugged before dropping down behind them soundlessly. He channeled a bit of yokai into his finger, causing his fingernail to become a claw. He quickly slit their throats and rummaged through their weapon pouches before finding a heaven scroll. "Perfect, now we have both scrolls. I should probably get another full set just in case," he thought. He left the bodies before darting off after the nearest scent trail. This time he found a team of older genin from Konoha. He was going to kill them, but decided not to. After all, for now they were comrades. He quickly stole their scroll without them noticing and took off. He now had 2 earth and 1 heaven. He spent the rest of the afternoon hunting a team with a heaven scroll. They were pretty strong for a minor village, weren't they, Kurama? Thought Naruto as he lay in a river washing the blood from his clothing and nails. I suppose. For me all you ninja look weak," replied Kurama. "Good point," conceded Naruto. Naruto got up and took off again, this time to reach his team before they set up camp. He arrived in time to see his team trying to build a fire. Sasuke could supply the fire and Sakura was trying to supply the fuel but didn't want to strain something while carrying large amounts of firewood. Naruto sighed before walking off and returning with a large dead log. He quickly turned his nails to claws and with a few slashes had reduced the log to smaller chunks. "There enough wood now, fire boy?" asked Naruto sarcastically. Sasuke grunted in response before lighting the fire. Naruto looked at the supplies brought by his teammates and couldn't help but wonder how they thought they could survive an exam like this. Sakura had a few packaged salads and some fruit. Sasuke was worse though. He had gourmet food products that would cost at least a B rank mission per meal. Naruto shook his head before creating a shadow clone and sent it into the forest. It came back a few minutes later with 2 large wild boars stacked onto its shoulders. Naruto nodded to the clone, who then dropped the boars and dispelled. Naruto then cut up the boars and started to cook the pieces over the fire. Sakura's mouth was watering, but she was trying to pay attention to her salad. Sasuke looked like he was waiting for something. When the meat was cooked, Naruto started to eat. Sasuke coughed. Naruto just looked at him. "Need a cough drop or something?" he asked. "I was waiting for you to give me my meat," stated the high and mighty Sasuke. "Oh sorry, did you two want some? I'm not sure I can spare any. I mean, have you seen me eat? I could devour both of these boars right now. But maybe if you ask nicely," said Naruto. Sasuke grunted and looked away. Sakura looked like she was going to go back to her salad and ignore Naruto until her stomach growled. She looked guilty before swallowing her pride. Naruto, could I please have some?" she asked. Naruto smiled before handing her a piece. Fine. Can I have some, Naruto?" strangled out Sasuke. "I guess that's the best I could hope from you, nudged Naruto as he passed over a chunk of meat. The 3 genin ate peacefully and set up a roster for when each member was going to take watch. Sakura had a smaller watch than the boys, but that's because they didn't want to die in their sleep. The next day finds Team 7 jumping through the forest prepared for anything. Naruto had decided to keep his extra scrolls a secret. Suddenly Naruto felt a burst of chakra coming towards him. Before he could do anything, he was blown away by a huge gust of wind. But Naruto got up and dusted himself off. "Bloody Futon base jutsu," he growled out. As he was about to go help his teammates, he tensed. He turned around to find a giant snake staring down at him hungrily. "Oh shy," started Naruto before he was swallowed by the great beast. The snake had a smug look in its face, if that is even possible. Before it could slither off, a red glow seemed to come from within it. Before the snake could contemplate what the burning sensation in his stomach was, he exploded into a shower of guts and yokai. Naruto looked around at all the guts and blood covering him and sighed. It was time to bring out the big guns of cleaning. His shirt was already ruined from the acids within the snake, so he unleashed 2 tails of yokai and used it to dissolve the gunk from his skin and pants and totally destroyed the t-shirt and he was wearing, leaving him wearing just his cargo pants. Luckily he had left his cloak in a storage scroll in his pants. He unsealed the cloak and put it on before dashing to where his teammates were versing what felt like a cage-level shinobi. Upon arrival he found Sakura unconscious and Sasu close to it. Across from them was Akusa Kunoichi with half of her face melted off, revealing another face beneath. Orochimaru of the Sannin. I am honored. Said Naruto sarcastically. The Kunoichi reached up and ripped off the face that once belonged to a poor genin. Well, it seems my information is outdated, Naruto-kun. You look nothing like the orange prankster that Konoha loves to hate. Mused Orochimaru. Naruto grinned, showing off his sharpened canines before making the come gesture his hand. Orochimaru smirked now before charging at the genin. At first Naruto fought using his own power but recognized he was being played with. With a growl he activated the first tail and started to fight. His increase in speed and strength took Orochimaru by surprise and resulted in Naruto landing a solid punch to his gut, rocketing him back into a tree. Orochimaru looked down for a second before smirking and massaging his throat. Naruto thought he had lost his mind until a snake came out and coughed out a sword. Orochimaru gripped a sword before darting forward faster than Naruto could see. A sickening squelch was heard and Naruto looked down to see his right arm resting on the ground. He looked to what was left of his arm, the part still connected that is, and sighed. I really like my arms, Hibipito. Said Naruto as he bit his remaining thumb, causing a bit of blood to pool on the thumb. Kyuchius. 2 tails in a poof of smoke. A large fox with 2 tails appeared. He was about the same height as Orochimaru. Sorry Kyuubi-sensei, I needed the other tail for repair. Said Naruto as he peeked over at Sasuke to see him unconscious. That was close, thought Naruto. Kurama just bared his fangs before charging Orochimaru, not even bothering to waste his time with talking. It had been a while since he had been able to move about freely. With Naruto, he was focusing on the last tail of yokai he could summon up for use. At first nothing happened until a red outline of an arm appeared. Slowly the bones started to grow and hang in the yokai. Naruto watched in fascination as the arm slowly regenerated. He spared a glance to where his arm had fallen to find a smoking puddle. Oh, that could prove bad for the environment. Thought Naruto as his arm finished. He clenched his fist a few times before jumping back into the fray. Orochimaru saw the boy enter and knew things were going to get difficult. He ducked and dodged the best he could, but the demon and container worked together perfectly. He saw a small opening and took it. Bajo Fuin, cried Orochimaru as he plunged his fingertips into Naruto's stomach. The Kyuubi disappeared and Naruto slumped to the ground. Orochimaru smirked before calmly walking over to Sasuke and Sakura, who were waking up. Orochimaru's neck stretched out and brought him close enough to Sasuke to bite him. A sickening scream wrenched its way out of Sasuke's throat as the cursed seal burned its way into his skin. Sakura watched in horror as Sasuke collapsed and Orochimaru left. She looked around and grabbed her teammates, dragging them to a small cave formed by some tree roots. She went to set up traps in the area before returning to check her teammates, mainly Sasuke. Within Naruto's mind, Naruto found himself in one of the cave portions of his mind. He started to wander towards the open areas but found a wall covering the exits. He could see through small cracks and could hear Kurama screaming faintly. At first he tried to overpower the seal but couldn't. Sighing in annoyance, he started to walk around the cave until he found himself in a room he hoped he wouldn't have to see ever again. He found himself in the sewer, to be precise, the seal cage. But instead of a giant demon in the cage sat a boy in an orange jumpsuit, curled in a ball crying. Naruto walked over and shook him to be shocked to find it was him prior to Kurama changing him. Before he could do anything he was knocked back by a punch from the boy. Why did you forget me? Screamed the younger Naruto. Why did you turn into what the villagers always said? You turned into a monster. Continued young Naruto. You used to think about how you could make someone change to see your point of view, but now you think of how to make them bleed out instead. Said young Naruto. Naruto looked on in shock before the shock turned into anger. What do you mean? They walked all over us and then you rolled over. You let them trample you. I stand up for myself. I am better than you ever were. Replied Naruto. Shook his head before standing up properly and taking a fighting stance. I'm the real Naruto, you're just a demonic knockoff. Cried out young Naruto. Naruto took up a fighting stance as well, then realized he couldn't feel any yokai. The seal from the snake was making this fight more even. Let's finish this then. Let's see who's the better Naruto. The whimper the powerful. Said Naruto as he charged forward, his moves matched by young Naruto. Chapter 7, an inner battle. Naruto charged forward, using a taijutsu style taught to him by Kurama, known as the Demon Fist. The main problem with this was it was meant to be used in conjunction with Demon Chakra and the claws it provided. Young Naruto had no problem dodging or blocking the wild swings that were directed at him. You neglected everything. You rely only on the demon, not on yourself and not on others. That's why you are worthless and pathetic," said young Naruto calmly while he sent a few punches and kicks into Naruto's ribs, each strike finding their mark. "You're nothing compared to me. You don't deserve to be a part of my mind anymore. I don't need you," screamed Naruto as he jumped backwards and held his palm out. He concentrated hard and tried to pull demonic chakra from the seal but couldn't. The seal Orochimaru had placed on him was too tight for any to get through. "Shadow clone jutsu," screamed both Naruto simultaneously. Naruto created 50 clones, but young Naruto created closer to 100. Naruto ground his teeth in anger before charging forward with his clones running alongside him. His charge was matched by the larger army of young Narutos. The two armies clashed and created clouds of smoke all over the battlefield. Naruto's clones were less in numbers but fought more viciously, slashing with kunai. The young Naruto clones were more hesitant to land killing blows, resulting in the armies of clones to whittle down to nothing on both sides. "We're evenly matched," stated young Naruto as he stretched his arms over his head. Naruto just growled in response. "Fine, let's go again then," sighed young Naruto in acceptance as he charged forward to awaiting Naruto. The two met in a swift battle that seemed to be swinging in Naruto's favor until he slipped up. Naruto had attempted to use demon chakra to enhance a punch as he'd done multiple times in his training. Without the added demon chakra the punch was slow and weak, allowing young Naruto to dodge and counter. With a chakra-powered strike young Naruto slammed his foot into Naruto's gut, launching him back. "You are too reliant on the fox and the bloodlust he grants you. Learn to stand on your own feet before you even try to beat me. Give up on your rage, stop being a bloodthirsty monster, maybe then the people will accept you," said young Naruto as he faded away. Naruto got up and growled before realizing the kick that young Naruto had landed had opened the seal placed on him by Orochimaru. He sat back down and concentrated, relishing the feeling of power rushing through him from Kurama. "Naruto, what happened?" questioned Kurama. "Orochimaru happened. He placed a weird seal on me that cut us off," explained Naruto. "Then I got pulled into the mindscape to find some weak version of myself crying. He started yelling at me, we fought. We were evenly matched, but he got the upper hand in the end. He said that I had to learn to stand on my own feet instead of relying on you. Maybe he has a point. I am more bloodthirsty when I have your chakra still lingering in my system. That is a good point, maybe learning to control your own power will allow you to control more tails as well. Being able to control your own chakra and mind might be the tipping point between power and losing your mind," theorized Kurama. Naruto just shrugged before fading out of the mindscape. Forest of Death. Naruto awoke to find himself in the roots of a large overturned tree. He looked around to see Sakura crying on the ground with her hair cut short and choppy. Above her was Sasuke with strange flame markings spreading over his body. Below Sasuke was one of the Odo Nin, his arms being pulled behind his back by Sasuke. A sickening crack flooded the area as the arm was wrenched from its socket. "Well, I like your style, Sasuke. I think you need to calm down," stated Naruto as he walked out of the roots. The other Odo Nin saw him and looked like they were trying to decide if they should be grateful that he was saving them or fearful that he would attack them next. "Here, take our scroll, just let us leave in one piece," begged the one covered in bandages. Sasuke released the one he was holding and let him scurry over to his teammates who dropped the scroll and took off into the forest. "Oh, you will help me test this power. You will be the first to fall." Sasuke didn't even get to finish his sentence as Naruto had bolted across the area and knocked him out. The markings had already started to recede. Naruto now took his chance to look around the clearing to see Lee on the ground struggling to stand and Team 10 cowering in a bush. "Shikamaru, you got all your scrolls?" questioned Naruto as he looked towards them. They jumped in surprise before coming out of the bushes. "And Neji, do you need your teammate?" continued Naruto as Neji landed beside Lee and grabbed his arm. Neji nodded to Naruto as he jumped out. "Not very social, is he?" questioned Naruto to Team 10. They just nodded. Naruto, do you need that scroll?" asked Ino, trying to use her feminine charms to persuade him. "Take it," said Naruto as he pulled 2 full sets from his cloak. Team 10 looked at each other before grabbing the scroll and handing it to Shikamaru. "Naruto, you seem to have mellowed since the start of the exams," stated Choji. Naruto smiled at him, revealing his large and sharp canine. "I got some advice from an old acquaintance. I decided it might help me out in the long run," said Naruto with a shrug. Naruto then sat down in the roots of the tree and started to focus on his own chakra, something he rarely did now. He sat for close to 3 hours just letting his chakra flow throughout his body, moving it to places around his body to try and increase his control. When he stopped he looked around to see Sakura sitting next to him with Sasuke still knocked out next to her. "We should head for the tower," stated Naruto, his sudden words making Sakura jump with shock. She was about to protest in regards to Sasuke, but he started to stir. He suddenly shot up before clutching his head and laying back down. "Alright, the team is awake, so let's head out," said Naruto as he stood up and started walking before either of them could complain. Sasuke grunted and slowly stood up, Sakura helping him the whole time. While Sasuke and Sakura were making their way out of the roots, Naruto made a small army of clones and sent them to create a perimeter around the team. The clones would dispatch any teams that tried to get too close. With a barely perceptible nod to Sasuke, they took off through the forest. Each time Sasuke landed on a branch he would suppress a wince. He tried his hardest to prevent Naruto from seeing. Sasuke would never let anyone see him weak. Naruto barely paid attention to his team as they ran through the forest towards the tower. They weren't interrupted by any animals or teams. The clones on the other hand slaughtered a few giant centipedes and scared off a team from Kusa. Naruto spent most of his time thinking about his strange good half that seemed smarter, at least more knowledgeable of chakra manipulation. While they were running, Naruto used only his own chakra to augment his speed. By the time they reached the tower, Naruto was just as tired as Sasuke and Sakura. He quickly read the inscription on the wall. Earth, heaven, both, he mumbled as he pulled out a set of scrolls and opened them, throwing them to the ground as smoke started to issue forth. In a burst of smoke, Iruka appeared. Congratulations guys, you got here with 2 days left to spare, meaning you can rest here in the tower until the end of the 5 days. When the 5 days are up, a Chunin will take you to where you need to go," said Iruka as he performed a few hand seals. A section of wall slid away and he ushered them up a staircase that led to a hallway with bedrooms, bathrooms and other living essentials. While Sasuke and Sakura settled into their rooms, Naruto went for a walk around the tower, annoyed with himself for how quickly he had grown tired without using Kurama's chakra. While walking, he found a few of the other teams lounging around the tower. He sensed the demonic chakra and bloodlust that Gaara gave off in waves. When he arrived at the source, he found Gaara sitting watching as his siblings played shogi on a portable board. "My old classmate Shikamaru was a shogi addict," commented Naruto dryly, making Kankuro jump and knock his pieces around. Temari had seen him walk in as she was facing the door. Gaara seemed to stiffen as he gave a small respectful nod. Temari eyed Naruto as he walked over to the board as she played her final move, beating Kankuro for the 20th time that day. "Mind if I play?" asked Naruto as he tapped Kankuro on the shoulder. The other boy stood up. "Be my guest, Temari keeps beating me and I'd rather fix my puppets," said Kankuro as he went and sat in the corner across from Gaara. Naruto smiled at him, showing off his longer than average canines. Temari looked Naruto up and down and decided that even if she knew she would win, playing against him would be beneficial. You could learn a lot about a person by the way they played shogi. The game went as Temari expected for the first half, but Naruto started to outmaneuver her pieces and adapt to her style of playing. Her strategies were being beaten and countered with relative ease. She attempted to switch her style around but ended up being caught in a trap set up by Naruto. "And that's the game. You were really great, Temari-chan," said Naruto as he stood up. When he stood, he saw Kankuro with his jaw almost touching the floor. A group of people had also surrounded them, cheering Naruto on as he walked away from the group. As Naruto was about to leave the room, he turned around to see Temari still sitting, staring at the board. "Hey, we should do this again, Temari-chan. You're the type of girl that I like to spend my time with," yelled Naruto as he winked at Temari and walked away. Temari blushed madly, her mind already spinning with thoughts and images that belonged more in an icha novel rather than the mind of a teenage girl. Or my fanfiction for that matter. Chapter 8 Preliminaries. 7 teams passed the second part of the exams. Team 7, 8, 9 and 10 from Konoha, as well as Kabuto's team, Team Dosu from Odo, and finally the Sand siblings. All 21 Chunin hopefuls were assembled in a room that was dominated by an arena and a giant statue of hands holding the Ram seal. The Hokage stood on a small stage. "Congratulations on passing the second stage of the Chunin selection exams." He smiled as he looked over the majority of Konoha ninja in front of him. Naruto was looking at the other ninja present, his demonically enhanced senses taking in every aspect of his would-be opponents and the room they were in. It was obvious they would be fighting here. They had been instructed to bring their ninja tools for a reason. The Hokage was saying something about this being a replacement for war, but Naruto was much more interested in the other genin. His eyes kept drifting to one in particular, Temari. He hadn't been able to get her out of his mind. She had grown up with Gaara and still obviously cared for him regardless of his Jinchuriki status, which was a big plus in his books. She was smart, strong and not to mention gorgeous. Haha, the kid's got a crush on the Suna Kunoichi. This is rich. Kurama laughed uncontrollably. "Shut your trap, fox, before I shut it for you," Naruto thought viciously. Kurama just laughed harder. A sickly looking man stood in front of the Hokage and explained the rules to the preliminary fights they would be holding. Naruto barely listened. He was wondering if he was developing feelings for Temari. It was certainly out of character for him. Somewhere during all this, Kabuto forfeited. The screen on the wall started cycling through names while Naruto was thinking. It settled on Naruto Uzumaki vs Misumi Tsurugi. Naruto found himself standing on the floor with just the proctor and Misumi, but still he was thinking. "Naruto Uzumaki vs Misumi Tsurugi, begin," called Hade as he jumped back. Naruto still not paying attention, which earned him a few sweat drops up in the audience. Mizumi stretched his body out and wrapped it around Naruto, holding him tight and preparing to break his neck. "Forfeiter, I snap your neck," Mizumi snarled, the voice by his ear jolted Naruto from his thinking. "Oh sorry, I didn't know we'd started," said Naruto as a smile appeared on his face, showing off his incredibly sharp canines. Red chakra suddenly exploded out from Naruto, encasing him in a fox-shaped cloak with a single tail swinging behind it. Mizumi screamed as he fell back, his body covered in burns. He got up and snarled as he ran forward, all the time screaming in agony. Naruto smirked as the hands of his cloak morphed into large claws. What happened next was a chilling example to the rest of the genin there to avoid Naruto in a fight. Naruto had made short work of Mizumi by separating his arms from the rest of his body with 2 quick slashes. The bubbling demonic chakra cauterizing the stumps left behind. Mizumi screamed in pain, and before Hei could intervene, Naruto silenced him with a single clawed finger into his eye socket. As soon as Mizumi dropped dead, the chakra cloak vanished from Naruto's body. "Off winner by elimination," Naruto Uzumaki said Hei as he tried not to look Naruto in the eye. Naruto smirked before walking up to the stands, the other genin avoided him. Just the way he liked it. Oddly, the Sand siblings didn't bat an eye at what he had done, so Naruto stood with them. Gaara bowed his head and the other two eyed him carefully. Temari was unsure how to react. This guy had been so cheerful and upbeat and dare she say cute when they were playing shogi, but here he had been as brutal as Gaara. But now up in the stands he was in full control again. It was now obvious to the members of the Sand team that Naruto was a Jinchuriki. 9 by the way. Naruto said out of nowhere. Huh? Temari responded. "You were wondering how many tails my tenant has, it's 9. Naruto stated offhanded. Temari, Kankuro and their sensei Baki gasped in surprise. "And your?" Temari started as she tried to think of a way to finish her thought without offending him. "Yes, I'm in total control." Naruto laughed. Gaara watched in shock at how Naruto was acting. Surely to be as powerful as him he should be consumed by hatred, right? "Oh, and Shukaku, don't worry, I'll cleanse that annoying spirit, maybe little Gaara here can finally get some sleep," laughed Naruto. Within Gaara's head Shukaku shivered, even he was afraid of Naruto. The board started to cycle through names again, settling on Shino Aburam vs Choji Akimichi. The fight looked boring from the get-go. Choji didn't want to hurt one of his classmates, but with some prompting from his sensei, he attempted using his human boulder technique. Sadly, during his indecision, Shino had already started spreading insects around the arena, and as soon as Choji had inflated, he was coated in the chakra-draining bugs. It was over before Choji knew what hit him. "Not what I would have done, but hey, it worked," Naruto commented to the Suna Shinobi as Shino was announced the winner. The next fight was so devastatingly bad that Naruto ended up laughing uncontrollably at the end of it. This fight had been Ino Yamanaka vs Sakura Haruno. The whole fight was a grudge match over who Sasuke liked more, and from the way that Sasuke completely ignored the fight, suggested he didn't give a fuck about either. Suffice to say, a double knockout was probably a small mercy for the two Kunoichi. The board cycled through the names again, settling on Kiba Inuzuka vs Kankuro. The fight was short but sweet. Kiba and Akamaru had gone into the fight cocky, expecting an easy win. What had really happened was they had ended up wasting a significant amount of chakra trying to establish a quick KO, but had targeted a puppet and not the ninja controlling it. Kankuro quickly paralyzed them with Senbon coated in a numbing agent. "That was too good. Kiba's been an arrogant and annoying mud ever since we were in the academy, although I was a lot like him then," Naruto said as Kankuro came back up to the stands. "Will Sasuke Uchiha and Zaku Abum please come down to the arena?" called Hade. The two genin came down to the arena. Zaku's arms were wrapped in slings, but he shakily removed his right arm from the sling and got into a fighting stance. Sasuke smirked seeing the damage he had done to the sound ninja. "You should give up now, I won't lose to you and will only damage your pathetic arms again," Sasuke said as he smirked. Zaku's reply was a smirk of his own. "Begin," yelled Hade as he jumped back. Sasuke tried to activate his Sharingan, but a searing pain exploded in his shoulder over the curse seal. He could feel the barely restrained power lurking there. He was tempted to use it, but had been informed by Kakashi that he would personally remove him from the fight if he accessed it. Growling in frustration, Sasuke charged forward, attempting to get in close to engage in a taijutsu battle. However, before he could get close, a blast of compressed air launched directly at him. He barely dodged it and prepared to dodge another that followed closely behind. "Pathetic, I thought the Uchiha clan were the best of the best," laughed Zaku. "You only got lucky in the forest. You were lucky you survived the forest," roared Sasuke as he charged forward again, his eyes flickering between Sharingan and normal onyx black. His chakra flared wildly as he tried to access it, but the curse mark was still messing with his control. "I won't lose to trash like you," he snarled as he finally got within striking distance. Sasuke swung a punch at Zaku's head, but Zaku ducked it and while he was down, attempted to blast Sasuke away, but before he could even move his arm a powerful kick slammed into his already weakened shoulder joint. He screamed in pain as his freshly healed arm was snapped out of its socket and wrenched backwards. "These arms of yours are your most prized weapons. It would be a shame if something happened to them," whispered Sasuke as he twisted his foot, still wedged against Zaku's shoulder. With another quick shove Zaku was sent sprawling. Sasuke turned around and began walking away. Zaku's rage boiled over and he slowly pulled his less injured arm out of its sling. Aiming at Sasuke's back he charged as much chakra into the tube in his arm and prepared to blast the punk off the face of the earth. Sasuke felt the chakra begin building up and spun around, throwing a kunai at Zaku's outstretched palm. The kunai's point lodged in the hole in the center of his palm and before Zaku could stop it, the chakra buildup in his arm detonated. The chakra and compressed air made short work of his arm, tearing through flesh, blood and bone like paper. His screams echoed for a minute until he lost consciousness and the medics carried him away. A younger medic turned green at the state of the boy's arm. "Now I can honestly say I don't like the Uchiha, but that was quite the show," laughed Naruto. The Sand siblings were unfazed by the sight, they were used to seeing such gore from Gaara. The next fight was Tenten vs Temari, and while both were capable kunoichi, it was the worst possible match for Tenten. Her use of weaponry was incredible, but were completely ineffective against Temari's wind ninjutsu and battle fan. Upon seeing Temari's finisher, Tenten landing back first onto the folded fan Temari wielded, Naruto's jaw dropped. He would never admit it to Kurama, but this girl was really starting to get to him. She was smart, strong, related to a Jinchuriki and ruthless in battle. "Crap, I do like her," thought Naruto. "Ahahahaha," laughed Kurama in his head. "Fuck, note to self, don't think when Kitsune Baka is awake," thought Naruto. Kurama growled and cut the connection. "That was quite the fight, Temari-chan," Naruto said offhandedly as she arrived back with their small group. Temari blushed slightly, causing Naruto to smirk. "Thank you, Naruto, it's too bad for her that she was put up against me. Against any of the other kunoichi here or even some of the guys she would have won easily," Temari said, trying to get her blush to die down. "You must be pretty strong to swing that fan of yours, it must weigh more than Sakura, then again an average kunai weighs more than Sakura," Naruto said, laughing slightly. "No offense, but your teammate is a disgrace to kunoichi everywhere," Temari said, getting nods from Kankuro and Baki. "Why would I take offense, I think she's a disgrace to both kunoichi and women in general," Naruto said, getting an affirmative laugh from Temari. "Winner Shikamaru Nara." "Hey," it called. Naruto and the sand ninja looked down to see Kintsuchi, the kunoichi from the Oto team, unconscious on the floor, her shadow still connected to Shikamaru. Above them the board cycled through names, settling on Rock Lee vs Gaara. "Yashgai sensei. It is time for my flames of youth to shine through and show everyone that I am a true ninja," yelled Lee to his sensei. The two could have been twins. "Lee, I sensei, Lee, I sensei." A rainbow and waterfall appeared behind the two as they hugged, tears streaming down their faces. Gaara refrained from killing Lee. "I may not like it here in this village, but for now they are my comrades," Naruto said calmly. Gaara nodded before appearing in the arena in a swirl of sand. Naruto was stunned to see that Lee had beaten Gaara to the floor, even though he had body flickered there. What happened next was shocking to all present. Gaara's control of his sand was incredible, and the way it automatically blocked all of Lee's attacks was amazing. That is until Lee removed his weights and shook the tower to its foundations. Now Gaara's sand struggled to keep up with the flurry of kicks and punches that were flying with devastating force. Suddenly Gaara grunted as he rocked back with a series of cracks appearing in his previously hidden sand armor. Gaara seemed to get lost in the thrill of the battle as Lee started to unleash a series of punishing strikes to the armor trying to break it, but he couldn't quite get through. Lee darted back and concentrated for a second, with a cry his chakra output increased tenfold. The ground cracked beneath him as he launched forward. It seems the strange one can open the 8 gates. That is a powerful technique that is able to increase the power of a ninja to beyond levels possible to anyone not a Jinchuriki, although with terrible damage to the body, and after the opening of the final gate, only death remains, lectured Kurama. "I didn't actually care, Fox," Naruto thought. "Well, you should, the gates being open could propel someone's power to the point that even my help could not be enough," Kurama said with annoyance. "Fine, I'll pay attention, then oops, too late," Naruto thought as he saw that Lee was encased in sand with only his face showing. Gaara was barely containing his demon's bloodlust as his arm shook as he held back the sand. "Lee is unabhate," began before suddenly the sand was blown away and Lee stood there with his skin glowing bright red. His eyes were completely white and a visible aura of chakra was swirling around him. Suddenly he was in front of Gaara with his foot planted firmly in his chin. Gaara seemed to be frozen for a split second before he was launched into the air. A series of strikes propelled him further and further into the air before Lee appeared behind him. The bandages wrapped around his arm swung around Gaara and encased him in a cocoon. Naruto had demonic chakra running through his system, not enough for a cloak or physical changes, but enough to enhance his senses, enough to let him see Gaara body flicker out of his sand armor in that split second before being launched and leave the armor behind as an empty shell. When Lee's bandages had entrapped the sand shell, a small sliver of sand snaked out and attached itself to the bandages. Lee attempted to slam what he thought was Gaara into the ground while jumping away himself, but found at the last second that he couldn't reel in his bandages. With a resigned smile at his loss, Lee slammed into the ground with the sand shell. When the dust cleared, Hayate looked down into the crater that had formed. Seeing the collapsing sand shell and the heavily damaged Lee, he raised his voice and addressed the audience. Ahem, Lee, an unable cough to battle, the winner is Gaara of the Sand. There was no clapping or congratulating, only stunned silence at the sheer power possessed by the two ninja. Naruto slapped Gaara on the back when he stood back next to him. Gaara flinched from the contact, which shocked everyone watching. This boy had just made Lee look weak, but a single tap from Naruto made him act like a frightened animal. Down on the field, Yoroi and Dosu were battling. The unique chakra-absorbing technique Yoroi used meant that Dosu couldn't get in close to use his melody arm, but he had been tapping on the metal of the weapon since the beginning of the fight, causing a slight ringing in everyone's ears. Suddenly Yoroi darted forward with a glowing hand to catch Dosu, but he slammed the flat side of a kunai to the melody arm, making everyone groan at the sudden pressure and pain against their eardrums. Yoroi wasn't as lucky, being so close to Dosu resulted in the full blast of the sonic weapon hitting him. When the ringing stopped, the audience looked down to see Yoroi on the ground with blood dripping from his ears. Hayate called the fight in Dosu's favor as medics came and took the writhing form of Yoroi away. The weirdo survived, having his eardrums demolished. Dosu commented offhand as he returned to the stands. Naruto was wholly unimpressed with the match, neither had abilities that he deemed useful. The chakra absorption would be useful if it weren't for the fact he had access to a nearly limitless chakra battery, and the melody arm would do more damage to his enhanced senses than his opponents. The final battle of the preliminaries was about to begin. Hinata and Neji Hyuga were squared off against each other, each in the same stance, although a few errors were present in Hinata's stance. The fight was brutal, and evidently Neji had a serious vendetta against the main house of the Hyuga clan, as he fought with brutal efficiency and targeted vital organs all over Hinata's torso. She had put up a valiant effort, but Neji was just too brutal. Hayate intervened before he could land a fatal strike to Hinata's torso. When Hinata was carried away, the winners of the matches were called down to pick out a number for the final round of the exams. 7 Naruto called out. 3 Shino said calmly. 4 Kankuro yelled as he surveyed his opponent. 8 Sasuke said as he looked at Naruto, this was his chance to show that even if the dope was strong, it wouldn't be enough against an elite like himself. He would just need to learn some more jutsu from Kakashi. 6 Temari said as she surveyed the last few fighters. Troublesome. 5 Shikamaru droned. 1 Gaara said with the same barely contained bloodlust from his fight hidden within. 9 Dosu said with confusion. 2 Neji stated calmly. Alright guys, this is the final matchups for the third round of the Chunin selection exams. Anko said as she held up a piece of paper. Gaara of the Sand vs Neji Hyuga. Shino Aburam vs Kankuro of the Sand. Shikamaru Nara vs Temari of the Sand. And finally a three-way fight between Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha and Dosu Kanuta. The winner of each fight will continue on to the next round and then the final round after that. Anko explained. Now that the preliminaries are over, I wish you all luck in your training over the next month. The final round of this exam is a highly publicized event, and as such each of you has the next month to learn what you can about your opponents and learn new techniques to combat them. Explained the Hokage. Naruto smirked, a month of training and so many things to learn and try with Kurama and Gaara. And Temari taunted Kurama. Naruto mentally growled. I need to speak with you, Naruto said quietly to Gaara as the Chunin hopefuls all went to meet up with their senseis. Gaara nodded slightly before both he and Naruto disappeared in body flickers. Chapter 9, A Softer Side. Gaara and Naruto appeared in a clearing within the forest of death. Around them the sounds of animals fleeing could be heard, the boy's oppressive chakra scaring off even the largest of predators. Before Gaara could ask what Naruto wanted, he felt a hand encased in demonic chakra slam into his shoulder, directly over his concealed seal. Gaara grunted as he opened his eyes, finding himself inside his mindscape. Looking around at the familiar sight of a desert stretching to every horizon with a giant pyramid located directly in front of him. Much better than mine, poor Kurama was living in a sewer until I showed up. Gaara jumped slightly as he saw Naruto standing next to him. Come on Gaara, time to meet a demon. Naruto said with a grin as his shadow took the form of a nine-tailed fox. Gaara just followed numbly as Naruto led him into the pyramid, where they found Shukaku pressed firmly against a fair wall. Keep him away from me. Screamed the mad demon as he clawed at the walls. Now Shukaku, that isn't nice, come say hi to your big bro. Naruto said with a laugh as his shadow grew into a glowing orange Kurama. No, leave me alone. cried Shukaku. Gaara could only stare in shock as the demon who had made his life a living hell cowered in fear like the men he himself had killed. Naruto just smirked as he was suddenly surrounded with his three-tailed cloak. With a small grunt he launched himself up onto the head of the great Tanuki. Now then, if the history books are right, then I should be able to do this. Naruto said quietly as he plunged his clawed hand straight into Shukaku's forehead. "I!" screamed the demon as he felt the Kyuubi's chakra forcefully invading his system. With a triumphant shout, Naruto pulled his arm free. Now clutched in his hand was a glowing black orb. With a smirk, Naruto let go of the orb, and both he and Gaara watched as it formed into the shape of a monk. "The Mad Monk of Suna, glad to make your acquaintance. Gaara, meet your predecessor as Jinchuriki. A hideous attempt at fusing human and demonic souls," Naruto explained as the ghostly apparition looked around in confusion. "Now we say bye-bye to this filth and hope that poor little Shukaku feels better after some much-needed sleep." The monk tilted his head sideways as he was engulfed in burning red chakra. The sounds of countless screams were heard as the soul was slowly burnt away. Gaara was still in complete shock as Naruto climbed down off of the unconscious one-tailed Tanuki. "Now you probably need some rest too," Naruto said with a grin as he pressed his hand to Gaara's seal. Line break. Naruto opened his eyes and looked around. They were still in the clearing, but it was now late at night and Gaara was sleeping peacefully on the forest floor. Wiping the smile from his face, Naruto set his features into his fanged smirk and slung Gaara over his shoulder. Jumping up into the canopy above, Naruto used demonic chakra to propel himself through the treetops until he entered the village proper, where he then made his way straight to the hotel that was housing all the teams from out of Konoha. After a quick check with the receptionist, Naruto took the elevator up to the floor the Suna team was staying on. Walking up to their door, he knocked 3 times and waited for about 5 seconds before the door swung open. "Gaara!" Tamari half yelled as she stood in the doorway in a bathrobe. "Oh Naruto." Tamari looked down at herself before blushing slightly. But her blush was forgotten and replaced with panic when she saw Gaara fast asleep on Naruto's shoulder. "Oh god, he's asleep, we are so dead," she whispered in shock. "Nah, you'll be fine Tamari-chan, and so will Gaara. I've helped him with his little problem," Naruto said, his usual smirk slipping slightly as he smiled at Tamari. "What? How?" Tamari whispered in shock as she tried to avoid waking Gaara. "I entered his mindscape and cleansed Shukaku of the invading spirit of his previous host, duh," Naruto said with a half shrug. Tamari just stared in awe. "Now then, where can I put my burden that shares a burden?" Naruto asked with a laugh. Tamari led Naruto into the room and gestured towards the only available bed, the other two holding Baki and Kankuro. "We didn't bother booking a bed for him," she said with a slight blush as Naruto lowered her sleeping brother onto the bed. She couldn't help but smile as she saw how peaceful he looked. "So are you just gonna crash on the couch or something?" Naruto asked as he looked around the hotel room. "I might not even go to sleep. I've had so much coffee waiting for Gaara to get back that I'm not sure if I'll be sleeping for a few days," Tamari said with a small laugh. "Well, if that's the case, why don't you come on a walk with me around the village?" Naruto asked with the slightest hint of a blush on his cheeks. "My chakra is charged way too high to get any sleep tonight. I was expecting some better competition." He laughed as scratched the back of his head. Tamari looked up at him in shock, a blush burning fiercely on her cheeks. "If you give me 5 minutes to get dressed, then sure," she said quietly. "I'll be waiting in the lobby then," Naruto said with a smile. Line break. "Oh Kami, this is too funny, the kid has a date," laughed Kurama as Naruto sat in the lobby with his hands behind his head. "Oh shut it, I'm just entertaining a guest to the village," Naruto responded. "You don't give 2 shits about this village," retorted the fox. "Admitted, you like this girl." "I mean, I can see why." Kurama mentally grinned as he sent images of Tamari naked into Naruto's mind. "Kurama, if you don't stop that, I am going to come into the mindscape, transform it into a giant burning hamster ball, and roll you down a fucking hill," growled Naruto. Kurama just laughed more as Naruto cut the connection. "Stupid fox," he muttered under his breath as the elevator doors slid open, revealing Tamari in her ninja gear. "So want to come see the only good parts of this shithole of a village?" Naruto questioned as he began walking side by side with Tamari. "Has it been as bad for you here as it was for Gaara back home?" questioned Tamari as she walked with Naruto, noting the disdainful looks he was receiving. "It was a few times. But the majority of the worst incidents are only just returning to my memories. A lot of them were suppressed by complex seals that were placed on me by the hospital staff. I've only just finished removing them," Naruto explained quietly. Tamari placed her hand on his shoulder in a show of support. "You can move your hand back now," he growled. "I don't care for sympathy, nor do I care much for this village," Naruto said as he received more hateful looks from the villagers. "Why don't we go somewhere less crowded? I'm feeling claustrophobic from the staring," Tamari said as she glared back at the villagers. Line break. Naruto and Tamari sat on the head of the sandame atop the Hokage monument. "This is the only time I can appreciate this village," Naruto said slightly as he gestured at the lights that sparkled like stars far below them. Temari looked over the village and couldn't help but admit that it was a nice sight. "So why did you really offer to show me around the village, Naruto?" questioned Temari as she blushed slightly. "Well, I was thinking of asking if I could train with Gaara over the month," he explained. Temari looked down at the ground in sadness at hearing that, "and I haven't been able to get you out of my mind since that game of shogi." Temari looked up at him and met his eyes. She smirked slightly as she saw his eyes drift slowly over her body. "Yep, definitely never losing that image," he said with a smirk as his gaze finally returned to her eyes. "Is that so?" she playfully questioned as she looked into his eyes, slowly leaning towards him. Naruto copied the motion. When their lips were almost touching, Temari pulled back and sat up straight. "You are more than welcome to come train with Gaara this month. After helping him, it's probably the best thing for him. And having the added benefit of keeping you around is starting to sound very appealing." She smirked. Naruto growled slightly at having his kiss denied. Temari shivered slightly from the sound of the growl. She was shocked to find that the shiver had been one of pleasure traveling up her spine. "I really like the sound of that then," he said with a gravelly voice as his hand slowly traced her jawline. Temari felt his hand slide across her neck and into her hair as he roughly pulled her to him and kissed her. She moaned slightly as Naruto took complete control of her. After nearly a minute of kissing her, Naruto pulled back, his smirk immediately finding its place on his lips. Naruto leaned forward again as he brought his mouth to her exposed neck and exhaled a long hot breath down. Temari moaned as he kissed her neck and bit her skin lightly. "I think I will definitely like having you around," she shakily said, her breathing labored from her raging hormones. "I should probably get you back to your hotel room now." Naruto growled softly as the light of the rising sun broke over the trees behind them and bathed the village in light. Temari sighed as she stood up with weak legs. Naruto watched her and smiled slightly before standing up and smirking. "Race you to the bottom," he said as he launched himself off of the monument with the sound of rushing wind marking his passage. Temari laughed as she grabbed her fan, which had been laying next to her, and unfolded it before using it to glide down to the ground below. When she landed at the bottom, she found a small crater with Naruto sitting on the edge of it. "What took you so long?" he questioned as she looked at the crater in shock. He smirked before dusting himself off and walked back towards the hotel. Temari was quick to follow. "What is it about this guy that gets me so worked up?" she thought to herself. "One second he's cocky, then he's bloodthirsty and murderous, and then he's cute, and then finally he's incredibly sexy before going back to the start. He's so confusing, but I just can't get that kiss out of my mind." Naruto waved his hand in front of Temari's eyes as she was slightly spaced out. "Hey Temari-chan, we're at your hotel," Naruto said as Temari snapped out of it and looked at the door. Reaching into her ninja pouch, she pulled out a key and slid it into the door, opening it quietly. When the door was opened fully, she desperately tried not to laugh at the scene in front of her. Aki and Kankuro were crouched fearfully behind a flip table peeking over at the sleeping form of Gaara. "Temari, he's asleep," Kankuro whispered fearfully. "We're done for." Temari couldn't hold it any longer as she started laughing as loud as she could. Gaara looked up blearily as he was woken up by his sister's laugh. "Oh Naruto, Temari. Hello, now let me sleep," Gaara said as he buried his face back into his pillow. Kankuro could only mutter incoherently as Baki stared in amazement. "I'll leave you to explain things to your team. Come meet me on the monument tonight and we'll talk training this month," Naruto said as he gently slapped Temari's rear end, pushing her into the room as he turned and walked away. "Good work kid, she is eating out of the palm of your hand now. Now all you have to do is make her yours," Kurama said with a lecherous grin. "Oh, do you ever shut up," Naruto growled as he left the hotel. "Sometimes I really wish I could just seal your stupid muzzle." Naruto was left with the sounds of the fox laughing as Kurama forcibly held the connection open between them. Chapter 10 Cliché Training Montage. Naruto smirked as he effortlessly dodged Gaara's sand attacks, his muscles enhanced with a mixture of his own chakra and that of Kurama. "Come on Gaara, you'll have to do better than some sand shuriken," taunted Naruto. Gaara narrowed his eyes. "You think that is all I'm doing?" questioned Gaara as the sand from the countless shuriken rose up behind Naruto, and with a triumphant smirk a hand of sand slammed down onto Naruto, but when the smoke cleared, there was only the remains of a smashed log. "Now Gaara, that was still too simple, you have to start thinking more strategically," Naruto teased. "Just dropping hands on people isn't going to get you anywhere in life. It was doing me just fine until you dropped into my life." Gaara yelled as a spear of sand shot out his outstretched hand and towards Naruto. With a smile, Naruto grabbed the spear out the air and sent a blast of Kaiten chakra through it, causing it to solidify into glass. Naruto began lazily spinning his newly acquired weapon. "A spear, that's new. I like it," Naruto said with a laugh. "Time to test some close range now." Gaara barely had time to bring up sand to stop Naruto's sudden advance. With a quick sand body flicker, Gaara appeared on the far side of the training field, but by the time he had looked up, Naruto was upon him again. Hastily conjuring another spear, he met Naruto's attack with his own. "Gaara, charge the spear with my chakra," whispered the surprisingly calm voice of Shukaku. With a mental nod, Gaara pulled chakra from his seal and pumped it directly into the spear. Naruto, sensing the demonic chakra, smirked, displaying his sharpened canines, and began pumping more of Kurama's chakra into his own spear. The two spears had now undergone some interesting transformations. Gaara's now had blue lines of demonic chakra pulsing along its length, while small tendrils of sand writhed madly out of small blue points of chakra. Naruto's spear now had what looked to be a core of molten glass and had small holes that sent jets of flame randomly flickering along the blades. The two demon containers slammed their spears together over and over as each tried to overpower the other. Flames and sand meeting in small bursts of power, leaving molten puddles of glass on the ground. Naruto smirked as he suddenly ducked under Gaara's latest swing and slammed the butt of his spear into his red-headed opponent's stomach, forcing the air out of him. Before Naruto could remove the spear, however, Gaara's spear slammed into it, shattering it into hundreds of pieces. With a triumphant smirk now firmly in place, Gaara stabbed his spear into Naruto and watched as he exploded into smoke. Clapping was heard from behind him, forcing him to turn and see Naruto standing in a tree completely unharmed and his clothing untouched from the battle. "That was impressive, Gaara. I loaded that clone with about a tail's worth of chakra," Naruto said with a smile as he jumped down. More clapping was heard as Temari walked into their vision. "That was quite the sight, boys, but Gaara, Baki wants us to have a team meeting, so I'm afraid you'll have to cut today's training short," she said with an apologetic smile. "It's all good, Temari-chan. Gaara and I were finished anyway," Naruto replied as he cracked his neck and prepared to leave. Temari and Gaara looked at one another before both disappeared in a body flicker. "So they're going to discuss the invasion, and me," Naruto thought as he immediately followed the siblings. Team Suna hotel room, now with an extra bed. Baki looked over his team and sighed. "Alright team, we need to discuss this issue with Naruto and the upcoming invasion. Do we still take part now that the initial plan doesn't seem to be an option anymore?" Baki asked as he looked particularly at Gaara. "I'm all for you guys going ahead with the invasion, and I'm definitely behind the idea of Gaara going full on Biju mode," Naruto said as he made himself known to the Sand team. "Naruto, how did you get in here?" Baki asked in alarm. "Oh please, not even the Anbu can find me when I don't want to be found," Naruto said offhandedly. "Why would you want us to continue the invasion? This is your home after all," Kankuro asked in confusion. Naruto outright laughed at that. "Oh please, I couldn't care less about this shithole. An invasion sounds like a fun time for some long-awaited retribution on this village," Naruto said with a bloodthirsty grin finding its way onto his face. A shiver made its way down Temari's spine when she saw the grin, her face flushed slightly as she found herself lusting after Naruto. "Now if you'll excuse me, you guys can go on and chat about your plans, and I'm gonna go do some solo training. After all, I want some secrets for if we fight in the finals, and I want the specifics of the invasion to be a surprise. It'll be more fun slaughtering that way," Naruto said as he left the hotel room. "Well, that was both unanticipated and expected at the same time," said Gaara as he watched Naruto leave the room. Line break. To the outside observer, Naruto appeared to be sleeping in his apartment, but internally a battle was raging. Naruto stood encased in a cloak of dark red, almost black, chakra. 4 foxtails swung behind him. Naruto could barely contain the energy around him as he roared in agony, the chakra burning his skin away and healing it just as fast. Kurama watched on in human form as he felt Naruto drawing on more and more of his power. With a sigh, he pulled his chakra back from Naruto and into the seal and watched as Naruto collapsed in a panting heat. "This isn't working, Kurama-sensei," Naruto managed to gasp out between pants. "I can see that," Kurama mumbled, scratching his chin. Suddenly he felt something strange happening. Information that felt like it didn't belong to him was appearing in his head. "We are using the wrong path," whispered a voice faintly on the wind. Kurama was shocked to hear the unmistakable voice of the first human to befriend all of the Biju and use their chakra in sync. "Asura," Kurama whispered in shock as for a split second Naruto flickered and became another person entirely before reverting to normal. Taking a second to take in the information he just learned, both from Asura and the realization that Naruto was a reincarnation. "Alright Naruto, I'm going to need you to sit still and let me explain something to you. Information long forgotten and only remembered through a twist of fate that could prove to make all the difference." Kurama began as Naruto sat up in a meditative position. Sorry, time for some big chunks of explanation. Long-time readers may recognize this, as when I break from canon and invent my own stuff. Back when Nina were still in their infancy, there was a man known as the Sage of Six Paths. He was the first Jinchuriki and contained within him the legendary 10-tailed beast that was split apart to become the 9 separate Biju you know today. He was the creator of ninjutsu and led this world into a new era of chakra and development. It was through him and his youngest son that the 6 paths were created. Kurama began. "What are the 6 paths?" questioned Naruto. "I was getting there. The 6 paths are the different ways that a Jinchuriki can control demonic chakra and their own chakra. The sage, while calling himself the Sage of Six Paths, was actually unable to use them all, simply because of the sheer power of the beast he contained. But his son, who didn't actually hold a demon within him, mastered the remaining paths and worked with us Biju as friend and ally. The path we have been attempting is known as the path of rage. Using pure emotion, predominantly anger, a Jinchuriki begins transforming tail by tail until reaching their final stage of transformation. This is a powerful method but is incredibly hard to control in most instances. The path that your doppelganger used was known as the path of serenity. This path uses strength of will to suppress all demonic influence and uses only the Jinchuriki's own chakra. If they are forced to use their Bijuu's chakra, they can either have complete control or lose themselves completely to the whims of their demon. Gaara used to use the path of submission. The Jinchuriki completely surrenders to the Bijuu within and allows them complete control of the host's body. The Jinchuriki loses all control and can often be consumed by the demon and die. The opposite of that path is the path of control. Using various techniques, the Jinchuriki are an outside source, is able to suppress the will of the Bijuu and use their chakra as their own. Depending on the level of control the user has over the Bijuu determines how much power they can control. The next path is the path of harmony. The Bijuu and Jinchuriki work together in tandem to fight and control the flow of chakra. This form is incredibly powerful and can allow for complete transformations quite quickly and allows for use of some of our strongest techniques. The final path has only been used by one person, and that was the sage's son. It is the path of union. This path is a complete fusion of man and beast. The sage's son was capable of using power never before seen or seen since when in perfect fusion with us Bijuu. This is by far the most powerful path, but I don't believe it is attainable anymore without the unique chakra of the sage and his family. Finished Kurama as Naruto looked on with a slack-jawed expression. You're telling me you just remembered all that? Naruto exclaimed in shock. That information would have been really handy when we started training with your chakra. Kurama shrugged in response. Hey, I am really old, I have forgotten more things than you will ever know. Kurama defended. Ugh, fine, I assume we'll be attempting to use the path of harmony then? Naruto questioned. Yes, but there is a slight hitch in that plan. The seal your father used to place me within you limits the level of control I can exert over my own chakra other than sending it in or out of the seal. Explained Kurama. Then we just need to find a way to crack open the seal then. Easy as pie. Naruto said smugly as Kurama just shook his head in despair. To crack open this seal as you so eloquently put it will require a seal key, which as far as I'm aware of there are only 2 copies. One is hidden in the Hokage vault and I can vaguely sense that the other is in the summoning realm. Kurama explained. Then tonight we break into the Hokage vault. Naruto said with a smirk that was mirrored on Kurama's fanged visage. That night, Naruto walked out of the Hokage vault silently, a scroll tucked under his arm. Anbu were patrolling the halls of the Hokage tower and he had to be vigilant to avoid them. Silently thanking Kami for his stealth training with Kurama, he made his way out of the tower and then headed straight for training ground 44, the Forest of Death. When he eventually found himself in the clearing where he purged the mad monk from Shukaku, he set the scroll on the floor and unrolled it. The entire inside of the scroll was filled with intricate sealing designs that seemed to dance before his eyes. His sight was drawn to a blank white square that remained unmoving despite the rest of the seals constantly shifting. Taking a quick breath in and holding it, Naruto placed the fingers of his right hand into the square and had to hold in a gasp of shock as the seals immediately began shooting up his arm, wrapping around it until the scroll was left blank. Naruto looked to his arm and saw the seals fade into his skin. Smirking in triumph, Naruto made a shadow clone and sent it to return the scroll to its original place before he sat down and entered his mindscape. Walking through the meadow that was his mindscape, Naruto smiled as Kurama almost immediately took his place walking next to him. With a barely perceptible nod, Naruto reached his hand forward into thin air. The seals on his arm lit up as a small paper tag that had the kanji for seal appeared in thin air. Naruto grabbed the seal and ripped it clean away. He watched fascinated as it burned away into nothing. Looking back up, he saw a circular locking mechanism with 5 spiraling pieces of metal that began at the edges and met at the middle. Pulling his shirt up, he saw the seal on his stomach was glowing slightly. 5 glowing dots stuck out on the seal, and without hesitation, Naruto placed each of the fingers of his right hand onto the seal. With a twist, he watched the lock slowly unwind until it had an hollow center before it faded away. Can you feel it, Naruto? Can you feel our power flowing together? Questioned Kurama as he felt his chakra flowing freely. Naruto nodded as power flooded through him. A glowing orange chakra cloak surrounded him as he accessed all 9 tails of Kurama's power for the first time. With a smile, Naruto let the cloak drop and looked down to where his foxtail tattoos had been previously. Now there was instead a solid black line that started between his shoulder blades and traveled down to the back of each hand. On the back of his hands the lines formed hollow circles which each contained a spiral with consisting of 9 lines. I think this is where things get interesting. Naruto said with a bloodthirsty grin stretching across his lips. Chapter 11 The Finals. The day of the final exam brought hundreds of guests and dignitaries to the great stadium in Konoha. Not to mention the hundreds of hidden sand and sound ninja waiting for the signal to attack the village. In the center of the Konoha arena stood 7 individuals, arguably the most powerful of their generation. These 7 were the ones to make it to the finals of the Chunin exams minus Sasuke. Sasuke was simply late, a trait picked up from his perpetually tardy sensei. This place is packed, how many do you think we can slaughter before someone with actual power tries to stop us? Questioned Kurama as he looked through Naruto's eyes at the onlookers. I count at least 100 civilians that tormented me as a kid and maybe 50 ninja that liked to use me as a pincushion. Less than I thought, maybe most of them were afraid I would turn on them now that I'm a ninja. Maybe they're smarter than I gave them credit for. Naruto thought with an internal laugh. I think we could probably kill them all, and more before they can even think of trying to stop us. Ahem, quit looking around. You're all on display, so put on a good front and prepare yourselves for what could be your final fights as genin of your villages. Said Genma Shiranui, the replacement proctor for the finals of the exam. The original proctor, Hade, had been killed during an altercation with Baki while he was meeting with Odo's spy Kabuto. Naruto scoffed and looked up to where the cages were sitting. The Hokage sat with his guards behind him, next to him sat the Kazekage with 4 of his own guards behind him. Hiruzen stood up and looked over the crowds. As he surveyed, he couldn't help but feel that something was going to change, something big and definitely bad. Welcome everyone to the final round of the Chunin selection exam. I would like to formally begin this final tournament and hand over to our esteemed proctor, Genma Shiranui. Hiruzen exclaimed with an amplification jutsu on his voice. This tournament consists of a series of battles pitched between our Chunin hopefuls here. If a contender is incapacitated, killed or disqualified, I will personally end the match. Any attempts to continue the fight after I have announced a winner will mean an immediate disqualification. Hade announced, now the first fight will be between Neji Hyuga of Konoha and Gaara of Suna. Will all other competitors please head up to the observation deck and wait for your turn to fight. Naruto placed his hand on Gaara's shoulder and a slight surge of demonic chakra passed between the two. Carried within the chakra was a message. Don't waste too much energy on a pathetic leaf scum like Neji, wait for the big finale to pull out all the stops. Gaara nodded as he waited for everyone to clear the arena floor. The first fight of the Chunin selection finals, begin. Cried Genma as he jumped back to a safe distance. Gaara just removed the cork from the gourd on his back and let his sand begin pouring out onto the floor. You should just give up now, fate has already declared me the winner of this battle. You beat my teammate, but compared to me he's a pathetic child. I am the prodigy of the Hyuga clan and I will not be defeated by a lowly sand ninja. Neji announced mockingly. Are you finished? Gaara droned, his gourd now completely empty of sand. This match will go down in history as soon as greatest shame. Exclaimed Neji as he sunk into his taijutsu stance. Gaara deadpanned as he looked at his opponent. Neji narrowed his blank eyes as he charged forward and sent powerful palm strikes towards his opponent. Each strike was blocked with sand, but the chakra discharged from Neji's hands disrupted the demonic chakra within the sand, causing it to fall to the ground with each strike. I grow tired of you. Gaara stated as he swept his hand forward, causing the sand that had fallen to the ground to rise up into countless arms of sand. Neji jumped back as demonic hands of sand chased after him. Jinchuriki art. Desert pursuit. Byakugan, Neji cried as he activated his Kekkei Genkai. Precise strikes lashed out at the hands that came towards him, tearing through them as they came after him. But with each he broke, more would rise up. 8 trigrams. Palm rotation, yelled Neji as he spun on the spot and emitted chakra around him into a dome of spinning energy. The hands slammed into the dome and were shredded, scattering sand around the arena floor. Gaara looked down at the sand around him. He had expended most of Shukaku's available chakra with that attack and would be hard-pressed to bring up a full shield of sand when Neji closed in to attack again. It was time to think strategically. You cannot hide anything from my eyes, I can see your connection to the sand is limited at best now. It's time I ended this. You're within my range of divination. 8 trigrams. 64 palms. Neji dropped into a low stance and brought one hand forward. With a cry of 1. He began his attack sequence, announcing the number of strikes with each consecutive hit. After his final cry of 64, Neji jumped back out of breath from the exertion of pulling off one of his clan's most prized jutsu. Gaara grunted in pain, feeling his chakra points completely sealed. Luckily his armor had deflected most of the shots, aiming to physically damage him, and the few that made it past his armor were already beginning to heal. That is a nuisance. Gaara mused out loud as he attempted to access his chakra. As he searched through his body he found something. The small burst of Kurama's chakra from Naruto that had carried his message was still lingering slightly in his system. The chakra was so dense and powerful that now that he had accessed it, his chakra points were already being forced back open by the chakra. With renewed energy Gaara stood up straight and raised one hand up in front of himself. Neji gasped in surprise as the sand that now covered the arena floor glowed with chakra. What did you say before? It's time I end this. I think you're right, it is time I ended this. Gaara said with a smirk on his face. Up in the stands the Hyuga clan stared in abject horror. They had trained Neji mercilessly this past month to make him the perfect example of Hyuga dominance, and now he appeared to be on the ropes, and their most powerful techniques were made to look like child's play to overcome. This would not reflect kindly back onto them, they would have to rely on the age-old tactic of blaming Neji's failure on being a branch member and therefore not as powerful so they could save face. Back in the arena, Jinchuriki art. Desert of Despair, Gaara cried as the sand rose up around the arena. Gaara raised his hand up and clenched his fist, causing the sand to begin swirling around the two of them. Neji immediately began spinning into another rotation, but even within the dome of chakra he wasn't safe. Bits of sand rose up from the ground beneath him, and even through the dome of chakra, while it was a good defense, it was far from airtight. From outside the sudden sandstorm, Genma tried to ascertain the state of the genin within. He could feel Neji pumping chakra out into what he assumed was a rotation, but with Gaara's chakra saturating the air, it was hard to get a proper read on what was going on. Before he could intervene, however, the sand was sucked back into Gaara's gourd, leaving the redeed looking no worse for wear. Neji on the other hand was a complete mess, his clothing was in tatters, and most of his exposed skin was left bloody and ragged from the sand slicing into him. Neji lay on the ground barely clinging to consciousness, his body unable to move anymore. Winner of the first round, Gaara of the Sand. Genma cried as Gaara's body flickered up to the observation deck while Neji was taken away by Medic Ninja. Impressive Gaara, but you could have finished that so much quicker. Although I do like how you played with him at the end. Letting him put up his defense only to sneak past it anyway. Fucking hilarious, Naruto laughed as he stood with the Sand siblings. I learned from the best. Gaara said with a smirk. Naruto just laughed harder. And don't you forget it, I have plenty more tricks up my sleeve for when we finally get to face off properly. Naruto responded, his own fanged smirk having more of an effect on those around him. Those reactions being the Leaf Ninja backing away slowly, Kankuro shivering, Gaara mock bowing and Temari blushing slightly. Will Kankuro of Suna and Shino Aburam of Konoha please report to the arena floor? Yelled Genma as said genin made their way down to the arena floor. So Temari, between your brother and Shino, who do you think will win? Questioned Naruto as he put his arm around her shoulder, causing her to blush. Well, to be honest, with Kankuro holding back for you know what, I doubt he could put up much of a fight. Even if he was fighting at full capacity, from what we know of the Aburam clan, he would still have trouble. Temari surmised. Interesting, so little faith in your own brother. But you're right in your assessment, the Aburam is a threat that your brother has already underestimated. Naruto said with a laugh as he watched the battle begin down in the arena. Kankuro began the fight by immediately taking cover in the wooded area of the battleground. His puppet doing all the work for him as he desperately tried to hide himself. Unfortunately, Shino had already placed a female beetle on Kankuro while they had been in the viewing area. Upon finding what he considered to be the perfect hiding place, Kankuro turned his full attention to his puppet, which he had been using to keep Shino occupied. He smirked seeing that Shino appeared to be struggling to fight against his puppet, and now that he could properly focus on it, he would surely win. A few finger movements and suddenly blades slid out of Crow's sleeves. The added advantage of the blades made it seem that Shino was now losing badly. Kankuro almost cheered in triumph when he saw one of the blades slide between Shino's ribs. His cheer died in his throat, however, when Shino exploded into bugs, his puppet's joints immediately seizing as they were clogged with bugs. Shino sat behind a simple genjutsu as he watched the puppet struggle futilely. With a wordless command to his Kakechu beetles, they began eating the chakra that connected the puppet to its wielder. Once the puppet had fallen to the floor, useless Shino turned his attention to where Kankuro thought he was well hidden. This battle is over. Shino said as he turned to look at Genma. Genma raised an eyebrow in confusion until an unconscious Kankuro fell out of the tree he had been hidden in. Winner Shino Aburam. Genma called with a shrug. Medic Ninja came and carried Kankuro away to let him regenerate his missing chakra. Did he seriously not notice bugs crawling on him while he was hiding? Naruto questioned Temari. When he's playing with his dolls, he has a hard time paying attention to his surroundings. Temari tried to explain, only for Naruto to shake his head in amusement. He'll need to work on that. But Temari of Suna and Shikamaru Nara of Konoha please report to the arena floor. The third battle will commence shortly. Genma yelled. Don't underestimate him, he may be lazy, but he's smart. The bastard will back you into a corner without you ever realizing it. Naruto advised to Temari as he gently pushed her towards the stairs. She playfully shot back a smirk. Don't worry about me, worry about your pathetic friend. Temari said with a smirk as she ignored Naruto's suggestion of the stairs and instead glided down to the battlefield on her fan. Shikamaru's entrance wasn't quite as epic, instead he was unceremoniously shoved over the balcony by Ino, who had come down to make sure he did actually compete. The fight looked to be one of attrition, Temari constantly staying out of Shikamaru's range and Shikamaru hiding and planning. "Stop hiding and fight me, coward," screamed Temari, her rage built to the point that she opened her fan fully and unleashed a torrent of cutting wind into the small forested area that currently housed Shikamaru. When the dust settled, the ground was littered with broken branches and foliage. Temari was standing in the only clear patch of ground, and around her nothing stirred. Shikamaru was nowhere to be seen. With Naruto's recent change in attitude and power, I thought it best if I increased my training tenfold, whispered a voice that appeared to be all around her. Temari attempted to spin and search for her target but found herself unable to move. "Shadow possession success," whispered a voice behind her. Suddenly her head moved against her will and she found herself looking at an empty space. "Look lower," the voice whispered. Casting her eyes down, Temari saw that her shadow wasn't her own, but that of Shikamaru. With a small grunt of effort, the Nara clan heir rose from her shadow and held a hand seal. Once he was fully risen from the shadow, he reached down to his thigh. His own kunai pouch had been discarded before pulling off the jutsu. Temari felt her hand clasp around the handle of a kunai before pulling it up to her throat. "I could kill you right now, Temari, and I would never have to lay a finger on you," Shikamaru commented. "How?" stuttered Temari. "I used a secret technique of my clan, called Shadow Swim. Using the shadows cast by the debris, I was able to get right up to you, and from there all my jutsu were nigh impossible to miss," Shikamaru commented. "But you see, I don't want to fight Naruto, and we both know he'll beat Sasuke and Dosu. Neither of us have a chance against him, the only one who could is your brother, and even then it's doubtful he'd even come close to matching him in power. I may not be a censor, but even I can tell that Naruto's strength is unnatural, almost godlike." Temari watched as the boy behind her lifted his hand, her own matching. He cleared his throat as he prepared to say something. "Proctor, I forfeit," yelled the combatants simultaneously. "Well, it appears that there is no winner of this round due to twin forfeit," yelled Genma. "We will have a 20-minute break to reconstruct the arena, and then the final fight of the first round will commence between Dosu Kanuta of Odo, Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha." Naruto groaned in annoyance. "Damn, have to wait even longer before I can get into the bloody arena," he thought as he cracked his neck and began to look through the crowds. If he wasn't going to be getting into the arena for 20 minutes, then he would have to find his own fun for a while. A subtle scanning of the crowd allowed him to find several people who didn't fit in, subtle genjutsus over their skin, and all had them placed firmly over their foreheads, marking them immediately as ninja who didn't want to be found. The few he picked must have been the few whose genjutsu were weaker than their allies, meaning they were likely heavy hitters in other fields. "Perfect," he muttered. "Be back in 20 minutes, Temari, keep your brothers in line for me." With a wink he vanished without a trace. Naruto stalked through the stands, hidden in shadows and blending into the movements of the crowd around him. Upon reaching his first target, he sharpened his claw-like nails and swiped where the cloth of a forehead protector would be. A metal plate with a musical note carved into it fell to the floor with a clang. The startled ninja spun around only for his own movements to impale a large claw through his eye socket. A small pulse of demonic chakra later and the body was gone in a swirl of leaves. Around the arena, shadow clones began repeating the attack on several other hidden Odo ninja and taking their bodies to be disposed of with the real Naruto, who had already lumped 3 bodies together in a pit in the Forest of Death. As the 20 minutes neared their end, Naruto shot a demonically charged fireball into the pit and left a shadow clone to watch the bodies burn. After all, half the fun was the memory that would be left behind from watching the flesh melt. Naruto and Dosu stood in the arena waiting on Sasuke until an Anbu landed next to Genma and whispered in his ear. "As Sasuke is yet to arrive, we will have Naruto Uzumaki and Dosu Kanuta compete, and if Sasuke arrives, he shall fight the winner in the next round." Genma yelled to the audience, which was met with polite applause. Naruto growled low in his throat. The bastard was going to get the beating of a lifetime. "Final fight for the first round between Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha and Dosu Kanuta of Odo, begin," yelled Genma as he jumped way back. Dosu began the fight without any fanfare, immediately dashing forward with his melody arm raised, hoping to finish the fight before Naruto could really get going. But his hopes were dashed as Naruto was suddenly encased in glowing red chakra with a single tail swaying behind him. My so eager to die," Naruto said with a laugh as he swung his hand forwards, causing a claw of red chakra to launch forward and knock Dosu back into the wall. "I think I'll play with this one." Naruto licked his lips as he said this, revealing his sharp teeth. "I won't lose so easily. I am all that remains for the Sound Village, and I will show that we are strong." Dosu growled. Naruto stifled a giggle and yawned to mock his opponent. "If Sasuke had been here for this fight, I would have killed you before you could move. My fight is with the Uchiha, and I need to blow off some steam. I don't like being left at the altar, so to speak," Naruto said as he waited for Dosu to charge him again. However, Dosu seemed to have learned his lesson as he dashed to hide in the series of rock spires that had been constructed to replace the trees that had been destroyed by Temari. Dosu smirked as he left behind kunai embedded in the walls. The kunai were made of a special metal that reflected and amplified sound waves. When he reached the center of the maze of spires, he sat in a meditative position and began striking the melody arm with a tuning fork. "Ready or not, here I come." Naruto yelled with dark glee as he dashed into the stone pillars. The sound waves washed over him with a dull roar, and he groaned for a second before compressing the chakra around his ears, muffling the sound. "Little annoying runt." Naruto growled. In the center, Dosu smirked. He had heard the groan and growl reflected back to him by his kunai. Dosu was certain Naruto wouldn't make it to him before the sound waves completely incapacitated him, so he began striking the melody arm faster and harder, just to make his win guaranteed. He was however stunned when Naruto appeared in front of him looking no worse for wear. Behind him were three tails swinging lazily in a breeze of their own creation. "Time to die," Naruto said quietly, his enhanced hearing taking a battering even with the added protection of his chakra. Naruto slammed his chakra-shrouded fist into Dosu's stomach and sent him rocketing backwards, but before he could get far, Naruto appeared behind him and struck him again, sending flying towards another wall. Naruto continued this for several minutes until he was confident Dosu was nearing unconsciousness. As Dosu passed over the center of the little clearing-like area they were in, Naruto appeared above him and slammed an axe kick into him, causing him to slam into the ground with devastating force. Naruto smirked in triumph as he punched Dosu from beneath, his chakra shroud flying into the air with him making the hilarious image of Dosu flying into the air whilst laying on a palm of chakra. "And now I finish it," Naruto said with a laugh as he closed his hand into a fist, causing the chakra hand to close, impaling Dosu 5 times with the chakra appendages. With a casual flick, Dosu was sent crashing into the arena floor. Naruto walked out of the stone spires brushing dust off of his clothes. Clicking his teeth in annoyance, he tried to scrub a bit of blood off his pants. Winner Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha," yelled Genma as he tried to avoid Naruto and the bloody mess that used to be Dosu that the medic ninja were trying to clean up. "We will begin the second round in a few minutes, folks, so get ready for the next round of the Chunin selection exam," Genma yelled, trying to get the audience back to their previous enthusiasm. Chapter 12 The Prize Fight. Naruto yawned as he sat in the competitors' box with Temari and Gaara. After training in the Path of Harmony for a month, it was slightly exhausting to use the Path of Rage, but it was also the easiest way to hide his strength. "So Temari, got any plans for after today?" Naruto asked as he stretched and cracked his joints. "Oh well, just returning to Suna and going on with my life like normal, I suppose," Temari said, caught off guard by the sudden question. Sounds good. I might just have to follow you home then," Naruto said with a small laugh. "After all I've taken you on dates around my village, it only seems fair to return the favor." Temari blushed at having their walks and training referred to as dates. "Maybe you should then," Temari said, trying to save face. "Perfect, it's a date," Naruto said as Gaara watched the two in confusion. "Will Gaara of Suna and Shino Aburam of Konoha please return to the arena?" yelled Genma as people in the stands returned to their seats. "Good luck, Gaara, although I doubt you'll need it," Naruto said as he laughed and settled down to watch the match. Gaara and Shino took their time getting down to the arena. Shino was merely his normal stoic self, but Gaara was taking his time to let Shukaku's chakra regenerate as much as possible before the next match. Neji's attacks from the first round had dispersed his demonic chakra into the air and had left him quite short of chakra. Once the two genin were ready, Genma began the match and desperately got out of the way as a tide of sand and bugs clashed in the middle. Both fighters were almost silent as their attacks waged war. Shino felt slight distress from his beetles as they attempted to eat the chakra from the sand, but it poisoned them instead of helped them. "Proctor, I forfeit, his chakra is poison to my insects. It would be foolish for me to continue," Shino said. Gaara felt a moment of dissatisfaction as being unable to continue fighting, but he still pulled his sand back into his gourd and headed back into the competitor's box as Genma proclaimed him the winner. "Well, that sucked," Naruto said with a laugh as he got up and headed down to the arena. "Will Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha enter the arena?" Genma yelled. "So if my annoying teammate doesn't show up soon, can we get on to the fight I'm actually looking forward to? Sasuke may be a so-called elite, but Gaara is the only challenge here," Naruto said, trying to make conversation with Genma. "Oh yeah, I guess so," Genma said as he looked to the cage box for guidance. A moment later an Anbu appeared next to him and whispered in his ear. "If Sasuke Uchiha doesn't report to the ring in the next 5 minutes, he will be disqualified," Genma yelled into the audience. "Oh god, I need to punch something soon or I'm gonna go stir crazy." Slaughtering Dosu wasn't anywhere near enough fun, Naruto said, causing Genma to edge away from him slightly. Naruto sighed in boredom as his fingernail formed into a claw which he began picking his teeth with. "It appears Sasuke has," Genma began, but was cut off as Sasuke and Kakashi appeared in a swirl of leaves. "We're not late, are we?" Kakashi asked as he scratched the back of his head, and I smiled. "Only just." Genma sighed as he motioned for Kakashi to leave the arena floor. The final fight of the second round between Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha. Begin. Genma yelled as he jumped back as far as he could. HN ready to lose dope. Sasuke said as he activated his Sharingan. Oh please, you won't even touch me. Naruto scoffed as he lazily stretched his arms above his head. For making me wait, I'm gonna have fun with this. Instead of responding, Sasuke launched himself backwards while throwing 5 kunai from each hand, each one aiming at vital points on Naruto's body. Jinchuriki art, Biju barrier, Naruto said calmly as he held his hand out towards the kunai and formed a barrier of demonic chakra that melted the kunai as they traveled through the air. What? Sasuke yelled as he saw his kunai turn into puddles on the floor. Whatever, I'll just overpower your pathetic jutsu. Kaiten. Grand Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke yelled as he rapidly went through hand signs. Naruto just raised an eyebrow as Sasuke's fireball headed towards his barrier. I'm not sure what you hope to accomplish. Naruto said calmly as the fireball collided with the barrier and was absorbed into it. Are you done yet? I'd like to have some fun this match after all. Sasuke ground his teeth in annoyance before launching another fireball, but this time at the ground in front of the barrier, causing smoke and dust to be thrown into the air. Naruto rolled his eyes as Sasuke appeared out of the dust to his right and attempted a spinning kick to Naruto's side. Sasuke was shocked, however, when he met nothing but air. While a spinning kick might pack a bigger punch, it's never wise to turn your back on your opponent. Naruto said from where he stood next to Sasuke. Naruto grinned, revealing his sharpened teeth before lashing out with a clawed hand. Sasuke narrowly dodged a slash by ducking under it and attempting a leg sweep that Naruto jumped over. While Naruto was in the air, Sasuke lashed out with another spinning kick aimed at Naruto's midsection. Naruto, seeing the kick coming, activated his chakra cloak, still using the path of rage, and propelled himself backwards with the arms of his cloak. That was close, maybe it's time I stop playing around and give all I've got. Naruto said as 3 tails grew out of the cloak behind him. Jinchuriki art. Clawed pursuit. Naruto said as countless chakra claws erupted from his chakra cloak and began chasing Sasuke around the arena as he desperately dodged the lethal attacks that Naruto was hoping would land. Sasuke's Sharingan was spinning wildly as he attempted to find a way to beat the chakra arms until he suddenly saw it. Whilst controlling the arms, Naruto had seemingly left himself wide open. Sasuke pulled 4 kunai and threw them at Naruto whilst dodging the hands. Naruto watched the kunai coming with fascination. They weren't aimed at him, but rather to miss him, and knowing that the Sharingan made Sasuke's aim almost perfect, that meant they were a setup for something else. He was unsure as to what until he saw the wires that led back to Sasuke's hands. Internally shrugging, Naruto let the attack play out. When the kunai had passed Naruto, they suddenly swung around until the wires were wrapped firmly around his torso. Sasuke didn't think to question the fact that the wires had seemingly passed through his chakra cloak unharmed. I've got you now. Sasuke yelled in triumph as the hand seemed to be unable to stretch any further. Kaiten, Dragon Flame Jutsu. Flames in the shape of dragon heads raced down the wires until colliding with Naruto. There was an explosion that obscured Naruto in his entirety, but Sasuke was confident of his success when he saw the chakra arms dissolve into thin air. Everything was silent when the smoke cleared and revealed only scorched earth. A clapping sound echoed around the arena as Naruto was revealed standing high up on the walls of the arena. Good job, Sasuke, you killed my clone. I thought you were done for, I really did. Naruto laughed as he threw away what looked like a chip packet. Oh well, I've had a bit of a snack, so I guess the clone was worth it. Sasuke was horrified. If that had only been a clone, then what would the real Naruto be like to fight? Ready or not, here I come. Naruto taunted as the 3-tailed cloak exploded to life around him. Sasuke lowered into his fighting stance as his Sharingan warned him that Naruto was preparing to dash at him. Sasuke blinked and suddenly Naruto was in front of him, his fist buried in his stomach. For a split second the arena seemed to be frozen in time. Sasuke almost wrapped around Naruto's fist, while a trail of red chakra hung in the air like a trail behind Naruto. Reality seemed to snap back into place as Sasuke was sent flying into the wall of the arena, leaving a crater in the wall. Naruto looked down at his hand and clicked his teeth in annoyance when he saw one of his claws was chipped. A small burst of demonic chakra later, and it was fixed. Sasuke coughed up blood as he pulled himself from the wall. Genma, who had been about to call the fight in Naruto's favor, stepped back as Sasuke glared at him. Sasuke's Sharingan, which had previously contained 2 tomo in each eye, now had 3. I'm not gonna lose to someone as pathetic as you. I'm an Uchiha, an elite ninja. Some clanless loser like you could never beat me. Sasuke roared as he charged forward again. Jinchuriki art, 3-tailed impalement, Naruto said as his tail shot forward and stabbed through Sasuke's shoulders, while the third wrapped around his throat and lifted him up into the air. Again Genma prepared to end the match, but Sasuke managed to bring his hand together, even though his shoulders appeared to be badly damaged. Dodori. He screamed as he managed to swing a lightning-covered fist through the chakra tails, causing the ends to be severed and evaporate. Naruto hissed in pain as his tails retracted. You just don't know when to die, do you, Sasuke? Maybe I'll have to finish what your brother started. Naruto snarled as a fourth tail appeared behind him. Naruto, you're letting the rage get to you, Kurama yelled to Naruto through his mind, whilst thinking that the plan to use the path of rage may not have been the best idea. Time for the real fun, Naruto said as he vanished in a burst of speed and appeared behind Sasuke and delivered a devastating punch to Sasuke's back. Sasuke rocketed forward, but his momentum was halted soon after by Naruto's forearm slamming into his throat. Sasuke choked in pain as he fell to the ground clutching at his bruised throat. Jinchuriki art, four-tailed torture. Naruto yelled as his tails wrapped around Sasuke's limbs and began pulling. Sasuke screamed in pain as the wounds on his shoulders would stretch out, causing his skin to tear and bleed, even more than it already was. Naruto, enough! Yelled Kakashi as he appeared alongside several other jonin of the village. Naruto snorted in derision. As if any of you could stop me. Naruto said as his cloak disappeared and dropped Sasuke to the ground, his limbs all dislocated and useless. The winner is Naruto Uzumaki. Genma said slightly fearfully. What, no applause? Naruto yelled and flared his killing intent, causing a light spattering of applause to ring through the audience. Better. We will begin the final fight after a short recess of 20 minutes. Genma said to Naruto, who merely nodded and body flickered to the competitor's box, where any members of his graduating class avoided him like the plague. Naruto growled at them and sat next to Gaara and Temari. Not a fan of the Uchiha then. Gaara said after a second of awkward silence, causing Naruto to snort slightly and laugh. I guess you could say that. Naruto said, which caused Temari to release tension she didn't know she had been holding, reminding herself that while Naruto could be truly frightening on the battlefield, he was completely different when around friends. Meanwhile in the cage box, what an interesting turn of events, eh Hokage Dono? The Kazekage said to his counterpart. How so, Kazekage Dono? Hiruzen replied. Well, the Uchiha is such a promising shinobi. I was almost certain that he would be the one to fight my son in the finals. The Kazekage said. I'm afraid Sasuke is a bit of a spoiled child, he believes himself to be quite powerful, but when faced with a Jinchuriki he is sorely outmatched. Hiruzen said evenly. Well, at least this final match should prove entertaining at the very least. A clash of the Biju. The Kazekage gestured to one of his guards and whispered something to him. The guard nodded and left the box. Arena floor. The final match of the Chunin selection exams begins now. Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha and Gaara of Suna, please report to the battleground. Genma yelled as the two boys appeared next to him in perfectly timed body flickers. Shall we give it our all then, Naruto? Gaara questioned. I don't see why not. Naruto responded. Gaara removed the cork from his gourd while Naruto was suddenly covered with an orange cloak of chakra that formed an actual cloak on his shoulders. His intricate seal appeared on his stomach as well as black lines stretched down from between his shoulders and down to the backs of his hands, where his spiral tattoos were actually spinning with 9 lines, creating a whirlpool effect. That power, it's so oppressive. Genma thought as he stepped back slightly. The final fight. Begin. Genma body flickered up to the wall of the arena to get out of harm's way, and it was a good thing he did too, because the second he was gone a wave of sand launched forward and slammed into where Naruto had been standing, but Naruto was already gone. That was dirty, Gaara. Naruto commented as he appeared back in his original position, making the sand on the ground to be sent flying away from the wave of air that followed in his wake. Jinchuriki art. Endless sandstorm. Gaara said stoically as his sand exploded outwards, blanketing the field in sand. Naruto growled in slight annoyance, but wasn't overly hampered by the sand, his cloak prevented it from touching him, and he could sense where Shukaku's chakra was originating from, so he took off to where Gaara was waiting with a spear of pure sand. Naruto had to duck as the spear lanced out of the sandstorm, attempting to take off his head before it dissolved into the sandstorm. Naruto was prepared to dash forward again, but a spear launched out of the sand from behind him that he swatted out of the air, but again it dissolved. Taking a second to tune his senses to finding Gaara, he smiled. I see what you're doing now. Making pockets of sand packed full of chakra to simulate your presence whilst you hide your own chakra. Clever, but now that I've caught on, I'll rely on other methods of finding you. Naruto said as he channeled demonic chakra to his ears to try and filter out the sound of the sand flying around him. After a moment he began hearing the quiet breathing of Gaara from his right-hand side. Jinchuriki art, Biju blast, Naruto whispered as he started building a small Bijuudama in his hand. The glowing orb of chakra grew to about the size of Naruto's head before shrinking down to a small orb that he clapped his hands over. Pointing his hands towards where he could hear Gaara, he fired the beam of condensed demonic chakra. The sandstorm suddenly stopped as all the sand was pulled back to Gaara. As the sand finished returning, an explosion rocked the arena. A dome of red chakra exploding out from around Gaara's position, but when it cleared, a perfect orb of sand was in Gaara's position, completely protecting him from the blast. Well, that was a close one. Gaara said as the dome collapsed around him. Closer than you think. Naruto said as he opened his left hand and fired a smaller blast that rocketed towards Gaara far faster than the first attack. His sand sprung into action to stop Jutsu, but the blast still sent Gaara reeling back a few feet. I see what you mean. Gaara said as his sand formed into a spear again, this time imbued with the power of Shukaku. Now then, are you ready? Naruto smirked before causing the orange chakra surrounding his arms to condense into long blade-like appendages. The two Jinchuriki dashed forward, colliding in the middle, each swinging with all their power and speed. Every swipe of Gaara's spear and Naruto's blade arm sent shockwaves that rocked the entire arena. Cracks were beginning to form in the ground around them as the pure power of the attacks decimated the landscape. The stone spires that replaced the trees were now merely rubble, and the walls of the arena looked almost ready to succumb to the almost earthquake-level force that was being output by the battling Jinchuriki. With an almost perfect timing, both Jinchuriki disengaged and jumped back before running through hand seals. Jinchuriki art, burning miasma, Naruto yelled as his cloak began giving off steam that melted the stone debris that now littered the arena. Jinchuriki art, encroaching sands, Gaara yelled as his sand raced forward, crushing debris on his side of the field into more sand, which rose up to join the rest. The two jutsu clashed in the middle, the oppressive force of tons of sand against a corrosive mist. Both battling for control of the other until Gaara's chakra began to falter. That moment of weakness allowed Naruto's miasma to overpower Gaara's sand and blast forward to clear the battleground between them. Gaara looked back at the sand he had left, not much if he was honest with himself. He knew this was a losing fight going into it and knew that although Naruto said he would give his all, he had yet to use a technique that required more than one tail to use. Gaara considered forfeiting until he saw people beginning to fall asleep in the stands. The invasion has begun. He said ominously. Time to make this convincing. Naruto nodded and the two began running through hand seals again, finishing at the same time. Path of Harmony, awaken. The two boys yelled and were both encased in cocoons of sand and chakra respectively. As they were doing this, fighting had broken out in the stands, Sand and Sound Ninja were attacking and the Konoha ninja were doing all they could to keep them back. To the mounting horror of the defending ninja, the orb of sand that had encased Gaara exploded open and the towering form of the one-tailed tanuki appeared from within. But then the orb of chakra around Naruto exploded, creating a pillar of light that stretched up into the heavens, and from within came a glowing orange version of the nine-tailed fox. The people of Konoha weren't sure if that was a good thing or a very bad thing. The two Goliaths of chakra clashed as if their fight in the arena had never ended. Naruto and Kurama tackled Gaara and Shukaku, knocking back the form of the tanuki through the wall of the arena and into the village proper. To the casual observer, the two were simply fighting, but to those in the know, Naruto and the Sand siblings, the two Biju were actually following a pre-planned route through Konoha that was designed to destroy the businesses and houses of the people most responsible for Naruto's childhood woes. Temari, upon seeing her brother and Naruto transformed, raced to the infirmary where Baki and Kankuro were waiting for her. Time to get out of here. Baki said. But I thought we were going to take part in the invasion. Temari asked, confused. It turns out that Orochimaru lied to us and killed the Kazekage. I just received a messenger hawk informing me that the Kazekage's body was found in the desert littered with snake bites. I've sent out an order to our ninja to retreat immediately, so we are going to go rendezvous with Gaara and Naruto once they power down and get out of here. Baki explained. Temari nodded and followed her brother and sensei out into the city. Internally she mourned the death of her father, but for now she was a ninja in the field and would suppress all emotion until she was in the safety of her village and she could mourn in any way she saw fit. Following the path of destruction to Naruto and Gaara was simple enough, dodging the countless Konoha ninja that were rushing about in defense of their village was not as easy, however. By the time they had avoided all the ninja and made it to Naruto and Gaara, they had finished their little dance and had returned to their normal forms, although Naruto was supporting Gaara. Hey there, Temari-chan, your brother appears to be about to pass out. Naruto said with a sharp-toothed smile. Chapter 13 Traitor. Naruto sat in front of the Konoha Council of Elders wrapped in wooden bindings that suppressed all chakra. Sitting in an elevated throne in the center of the elders was Danzo Shimura, wearing the ceremonial robes of the Hokage. While the village mourns the passing of our honorable third Hokage, I, Danzo Shimura, stand appointed with the position by order of the Fire Daemon himself, and I have been burdened with the displeasure of standing as the judge to the trial of one failed weapon in the form of Naruto Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Uzumaki, you are found guilty of treason. How do you plead, demon child? Danzo asked with a smug grin. I plead completely innocent. Naruto said with an equally smug grin. So you say that you didn't knowingly use the chakra of your tailed beast to attack an ally in the form of Sasuke Uchiha? Danzo asked. I attacked Sasuke, but I would never call him an ally. Naruto laughed. And while I'm at it, I may as well do this. Naruto forced an arm out of the wooden bindings and ran a sharpened claw across his hit I-8 before returning his arm to its bindings. Okay, you can continue. Naruto said as Anbu from all around the room ran forward to restrain him again. So by your own admission you, Naruto Uzumaki, declare yourself a traitor to this village? Danzo asked. Yeah, I suppose I do in the end. Naruto Uzumaki, missing ninja of Konoha, has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Naruto said with an almost maniacal laugh at the end. A missing ninja implies that you leave this courtroom alive. Danzo mocked. No, missing ninja implies I was never in this courtroom to begin with. I left this shithole of a village the second Orochimaru fled his failed invasion. Just made a shadow clone with a couple tails of chakra to take my place this past week, while the real me got a good head start on his way off to a new start away from the bigots of this village. The now revealed clone said with a sharp-toothed grin. Anbu, execute him. Danzo yelled, making the Anbu dash forward. Great clone explosion. The Naruto clone yelled as he glowed with orange chakra, fueled by 3 tails worth of the Kyuubi that had been funneled into it upon its creation. Danzo himself was forced to act as he ran through hand seals with his one functioning arm at a blistering pace. Putin, vacuum shield. A wall of seemingly empty space sprung up around the clone and kept the explosion contained, but the floor below and the ceiling above the clone was completely vaporized. Anbu, I want every hunter ninja tracking that beast down so the Kyuubi can be extracted and that waste of potential can be destroyed. Danzo snarled as he stalked out of the courtroom with the elders hot on his heels. Meanwhile, somewhere in the deserts of the Land of Wind, Naruto and Gaara were sitting by a desert oasis. Tsunagakure no Sato was in a state of mourning over the loss of their Kazekage, and only Gaara was indifferent about it. He may have regained most of his long-lost sanity, but the pain of his father's decision still tainted his memory. Oh, that bastard managed to stop the explosion. I was hoping to see a look of horror, but no, he stops the bloody explosion. Naruto growled in annoyance. Does it really matter, Naruto? Right now we've got time before he even thinks of attacking you, and when he does, the both of us can stop anything that he throws at us. Jinchuriki are army killers after all. Gaara stated stoically. With 2 alone we would be a mighty force to be reckoned with. You know, Gaara, that gives me an idea that is both terrible and fantastic. Naruto said as his grin threatened to split his face. Gaara found himself slightly unnerved by the expression. Do I want to know what you're planning? Gaara asked. Not until I've run it by Temari. She'll find flaws in my plan easier than either of us would. Naruto said as he stood up and brushed sand off of his pants. Come on, let's get back to Suna. I'm bored of watching a pool of water. Gaara sighed and stood up as well. Both Jinchuriki channeled their demonic chakra and took off as blurs of speed through the desert, leaving behind trails of sand thrown into the air. A few hours later, Naruto and Gaara were walking to the walls of Suna. I am honestly surprised how calm she took that, Naruto said, trailing off. She seemed actually eager for us to do it. Even Baki-sensei, sorry Kazekage-sama, thought it was a good idea if only to increase our potential political and military power. Gaara said. Why did we run it by Baki anyway? I'm a missing ninja and we're both Jinchuriki, there's not much a single ninja could to stop us. Naruto said. Hey, wait up you two. Yelled Kankuro as he ran down the street towards them. It was fairly easy for him to catch up as the people of Suna were so accustomed to giving Gaara wide berth. What's this about you leaving to find other Jinchuriki and try and recruit them? Temari told you already? Gaara asked, confused. No, Kazekage-sama told me. Wait, you told Temari but didn't tell me? Kankuro said, offended. We're not actually leaving right this second, Kankuro. I'm nowhere near ready to track down the others yet. I need like at least a month to get ready and then like 3 years to actually find them. Naruto said as he scratched the back of his head. Will you be going with him, Gaara? Kankuro asked. No, someone will need to protect this village and I am still a ninja of Suna. Naruto, however, has no affiliation binding him. Plus power enough to defend himself from anyone trying to claim a bounty. Gaara said with a small laugh. The plan thus far is to find and recruit the other Jinchuriki and then sending those that willingly leave their own village to Suna. The ones that wish to remain loyal will of course be allowed to, but I will establish a form of communication between us, that is if they join my little group. Naruto explained. You really thought this through, haven't you? Kankuro said. Naruto puffed up in pride until Gaara burst his bubble. Naruto only had a basic idea, Temari came up with most of the actually planning. Gaara said with a slight smirk. Naruto growled at Gaara before swinging a demonically powered punch at Gaara, who was caught in the midsection by the attack and sent flying down the street. Immediately all the ninja nearby pulled out their weapons but were shocked when Gaara just walked back to Naruto and resumed his place at his right hand, no worse for wear. Now then, Naruto, we're going to go and talk about a few finer details of this plan. You are more than welcome to join us, brother. Gaara said, but Kankuro declined, saying he had training with Elder Chiyo. Gaara nodded in acceptance and resumed his walking alongside Naruto. The two sat and watched the ever-shifting sands of the desert as they talked for the next few hours. Until Gaara sensed Temari approaching and quickly came up with an excuse and body flickered away. Was Gaara here a second ago? Temari asked as she made her presence known, even though Naruto too had felt her coming. He said something about getting more sleep, now that he can actually do it the kid is catching up on lost time. Naruto said with a deep laugh. Temari smiled at seeing Naruto actually happy. While they were in Konoha every smile had the tiniest taint of pain, but here he had a fresh slate. So do you want to tell me about any revisions you made to your plan with Gaara? Temari asked as she sat in the seat recently vacated by her brother. Not really, not much actual progress was made other than Kurama telling me that I could establish a connection between myself and other Jinchuriki by absorbing a small portion of their chakra, which then allows me to contact the other Jinchuriki through their own Biju, assuming they are on friendly terms with them. Naruto explained, what I'd really like to know however is why you so readily agreed to letting me go off on some crazy scheme across the elemental nations. After all you just got me all to yourself. Naruto had properly asked Temari to be his girlfriend after he had been given permission to come and go as he pleased in Suna as a friend and ally. Temari blushed as Naruto pulled her into his side. Because you and Gaara aren't the only ones who need a home and family that has been denied for too long. I seem to be helping fill those holes for both my brother and you, but maybe you can pay the favor forward and help others as well. Temari explained as she nuzzled slightly closer to the blonde's chest. You aren't worried that some other kunoichi will steal my heart while I'm out there exploring the world? Naruto asked mockingly. No, because I would slice them into tiny pieces and then you would be next. She said with an icy glare that made Naruto laugh heartily, his sharp canines flashing in the light of the setting sun. You know, I may not be particularly fond of the desert, but this view easily rivals watching the setting sun from the Hokage monument. Naruto said quietly. Temari nodded her agreement until looking up at Naruto to see him staring directly at her. She blushed furiously as he ran a slightly clawed finger down her neck. Temari felt a pleasurable shiver travel down her spine at his surprisingly gentle touch. Temari and Naruto woke the next morning feeling almost as exhausted as when they had gone to sleep the night before, their clothing still scattered around Temari's room. Breakfast? Naruto asked as he idly ran his fingers over Temari's bare skin as she slept on his chest. No, I'm too comfortable. She groaned and wrapped her arms tighter around Naruto, making him grin at feeling her nipples pressing into his chest. Eventually Temari relented and got up, but only after her stomach grumbled rather noisily. Okay, definitely breakfast then. Naruto said with a grin as he began trying to find his clothes, although as soon as Temari turned her back to him to find her own clothes, he smacked her ass lightly, causing her jump bolt upright and shoot him a playful glare. Naruto laughed as he began pulling on his clothes and watched Temari put on her own. If he hadn't just spent the night with her he might have been passed out with a nosebleed. Temari shook her head when she saw him checking her out, even though she was fully clothed now. Temari rolled her eyes then and left the room, but put a certain sway to her step that inevitably drew Naruto's attention to exactly where she wanted it. Naruto grinned as he followed her out to the kitchen that Temari and her siblings used for personal meals. Sitting at a small table were Kankuro and Gaara, both with matching circles around their eyes. You couldn't keep it down last night could ya? Kankuro said with a slight glare at Naruto as his sleepless body looked ready to give out any second. What if Naruto find Fox in Chunin exams? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.